You bring the spirit, the God. So that's how I call when I'm touched. I'm not sad.
I was always chasing this, like, climbing up this ladder of success, right? And it was like, oh, when I get to here, like, I thought this is what I wanted. And so it kept me busy, like 24 hours a day, like always doing to get to this like level. And then like when you get to the top of the ladder, it's like I realized it was on the wrong wall. And so when I got up there, it was just like such an empty feeling. Cause I'm like, the people that actually mattered, the things that actually mattered to me, like I've lost chasing this thing that I thought mattered to me, you know? So there was even a feeling of like even more emptiness, you know, when I got up there after, you know, leaving my daughter's house and like just the pain of not being with her no more. Like, I think like that was like worse than like anyone that died, you know, being molested, like any, like nothing was like on top of, like nothing like compared to the pain of like what I was putting her through and not being with her. Like that was just more than I could like actually handle. And I didn't know how to tell anybody that I could handle it, you know, and like, I'm still selling drugs, you know, like that's what I'm doing. And so I went and I got pills because I remembered, I was like, well, I remember those pills. So I started like taking pills behind people's back. And like, that's the only time like I wouldn't feel anything. And that was the only way that I could actually deal with like this like immense pain. But like before I knew it, like it just took a life of its own. And like those things just took a hold of me. And like at one point it's just like I couldn't stop. And like, and I didn't care anymore. And like I started losing everything slowly, you know, but I didn't even care if I was losing it, you know, like I lost my place, started losing like anything I had, it's everything. I just lost it. And like no one could reach out to me, you know, because I was just at that point, like I didn't care anymore about anything. Like I started like not showing up to like birthdays and like slowly like my relationship was just non-existent with my daughter. And I was like fully in the streets, you know, and just like on drugs. Like before I even, you know, it's like you just wake up one day and like I lost everything. I'm homeless. There was like many like rock bottoms. Like there's many moments that I called out to God and I was like, God, like I can just tell you, there's like sometimes like there was times where I like pretty much overdosed, you know, and like I don't know how I didn't die, like because there was no one that came to get me out of it. It was pure prayer and willpower. Like I'm like falling over, dying one time in this hotel room, and I was just like, as I'm falling to die, I had this thought like, I'm not gonna die in this hotel. Like I'm not. Like so many people had died. Like every week that someone OD and we're bringing them out in the hotel. Just a normal thing. It's even worse now, you know. But I was like, there's just no way. I remember having that thought, like I'm falling over. I'm like, you're not gonna die here. And I just like with any little might that I had, like I picked myself up and I'm like full-fledged, like coming down these stairs. I was like, you're gonna die on the street, you know, like at least die outside where someone can find you. But don't let them come in this hotel. And like I just didn't by myself, you know, like I would have died alone in that room. And who knows when they would have found me. And so, and it's funny because the friend that I'm about to go like buried next week, like that's how they found him. No one knew where he was. They went to a room and they found him last week in one of those hotel rooms. And like I always thought, like, wow, that really could have like that was me. There was another moment when I had got shot. Two people came running up with guns, right? And I'm already like healing from like shot. Like I can't close this hand, right? Because like I got shot through my hand. Like somebody, I was sitting in a car. I look last minute at the mirror. Someone like puts a gun in my head, and I like instantly in a split second, like I grab it, pull it off, and the gun discharges in my hand. When the other guy's standing over me, now he's like shooting directly over me. Nothing's hitting me. Either he had blanks, you know, or just for whatever reason, nothing like hit me. He's standing right over me. At the time that he's shooting, I say in my mind, it was like it was the funniest prayer because I said, God, I'm not getting up from here until you answer this prayer. Like you are going to help me do this. Like I can't do it by myself. And like instantly I just knew like it was just like get up, you know? And when I'm like, okay, so I stand up and now I'm walking off. And like normally I've been shot at like many, many times. And anytime I'm against, especially close range, I'm zigging and zagging because you know it's hard to hit a moving target. But I didn't. Like this time I was just walking. I'm more looking at my foot. I'm like, I couldn't just walk on this foot. Like, what is happening, you know? And I just like walking, and now the other guy's like trying to shoot at me, and everything's just hitting the wall, and but I'm not zigging or zagging, and like I felt so just covered, and so like I just walked off. I started reading books. I felt like I was making up for lost time. Like I went, I got this book on NLP, and I just started like devouring it, you know, and like I started listening to Earl Nightingale, and I found a piece of paper that said, I am NLP practitioner trained by Tad James, 2019. And I had wrote this in like 2015. Didn't even know. I don't even remember writing it. And I'm a master practitioner, also trained by Tad James in 2019. Just put it away. Don't know how, don't know where. And it just like happened, you know? I'm noticing this kid, and he like had anxiety, like really bad. And I was like, I can get rid of that right now, you know, if you want, you know? And he's like, no, you can't, you know? And I like gave him a little like, do this. And he's like, it's gone. And he's like, how did you do that? And I was just like, you can do this, do this. And like, he just started doing it. And like his whole life changed. He went on to like beautiful place, his own business, and like really just like his life changed, you know? So he's like one of my biggest, like, he just tells everybody, you don't understand, this guy changed my life, you know? Someone was going through some challenge, and like, he's like, I'm like having a breakdown right now, you know, and I'm really feeling suicidal right now. And I don't know if like I'm not gonna do it. And I was like, perfect. We talked for about like 2 hours. He's like, wow, I've talked to therapists for years. I've done like everything I can. And he goes, and no one has ever like talked to me to my situation and knew exactly what I was going through. And never could I have related to anybody. Like I've never seen the world differently, like so fast. Like he's like, I'm driving to the gym right now. I'm getting a membership. Like I'm not like, I'm stopping this. I'm doing this. A week goes by and I didn't hear from him or anything. And I'm just like, I know how it is. Like you can get all this stuff, but if like left to your own devices, like it's easy to fall back. But I call him and I'm like, what, like what's going on? And he's just like, oh, I'm sorry I haven't talked. He's like, I don't get high no more. He goes, I'm like, I don't know. Everything changed ever since like everything changed. And he said the best part. He's like, I know it's gonna be highs and lows. Like I know it. Like it's not like a magic pill. But I know I can deal with it now. And I know that someone else has been through worse. Like has gone through this. I know someone understands me. I know like how to set these boundaries that he like, you know, these little boundaries he had to set, and like certain things. Like it was like he just kept telling me, and he's like, how, I don't know how this happened. Years of therapy, all these things, like talking to everybody. I wanted to die. Like he's like, now I just want to live. And I'm talking to my sister now. Like I've been hiding from my sister and her fiance. We're on our way to go eat right now. And I'm going to the gym, and like, and like, it was just, I was like, you do know that who I'm talking to isn't the same person I called last week, right? And he's like, what? And I was like, I just want you to know that, like, this is a completely different person. I just want you to know that. Like that other person is gone. And like that person didn't know how to deal with that. But I really want you to know, like you stepped into your version 2.0. And like anything is possible.
How do you view those kids on the streets?
Everyone's just trying their best. Like everyone is just trying, like literally everybody, even the people I was like would annoy me, and people that just like, who's, you know, why do they think that way? Like there was a moment when I realized, like, no matter what, even the teacher, however, you know, everyone's like just trying the best. If they do better, if they had a different way, like they would choose that way. They don't know any better. And so a lot of like the shame for me was the being on drugs, especially like how I viewed myself. I was like never the kind of person that would go down that path. Like
Share a little bit about your mom. What kind of person she is?
She's an angel. She's like, if you know Mother Teresa, she's just very similar to Mother Teresa. We don't have anything to eat. We're like down to like the last like egg, you know, and she's painted on the egg, and we're just playing and having a game, and she doesn't know what to do, but she was like so committed to God and like so committed to the Bible. She's like, I'm not gonna go steal anything. I'm not, like it says right here in your word, like you'll provide, you know, it says like if he loves, like, and she's like, I don't know what I'm gonna do. Like, God, I really don't know. But it says that like, you know, that you're gonna take care. Like her relationship with God was very like personal. Like she would talk to him like if he was, you know, like that was the only person she would really like talk to. And then she's like, I don't know what I'm gonna do, you know? And so we're sitting there and then finally we're like, Mom, can we like eat this? You know, like we're really like hungry, you know. My mom's like, man, I don't know what to do. So she was about to go make it. And then randomly there's a knock at the door. And so when we go open the door, there's like all these grocery bags like just sitting at our door. Like she don't even know how it happened, you know. So she always like, these are just like one of like many stories or just like plain miracles would just like happen. My mom would just save it and people would come like donate some shirts or some toys like for her mission. And she would shove it in the closet. And like this whole time, like, Mom, who are these toys for? Like, who are these shirts for? And I was like, she's like, they're for the poor kids. And I'm like, we're the poor kids. Like, why can't we have these? She's like, no, you don't understand. Like one day you'll understand. Like an hour and a half drive to this just secluded ranch in the middle of nowhere. And then here we show up like unannounced, like nobody even knows that my mom has like all these toys, all these like clothes and all these things. And we open up and like all the kids line up, you know, and they're just coming and they're giving them like literally one t-shirt or just some sandals. And they're like the happiest I've ever seen. I've never seen kids like so happy, especially over something so small.
Let your light shine. Help others find their way out of the darkness. Extraordinarily inspiring stories from ordinary people like you and I.
Christopher or Chris? Christopher.
Topher.
Hey, how do you say your name?
Just Topher.
Topher.
Not joking.
I was like, what was that?
People always like, is it Chris or Christopher? I'm like, Topher's an option.
I like that. Maybe call that.
No, I don't care. I don't care. Chris, Christopher, whatever is easier for you.
How much time do you have?
I'm open. My schedule's open right now for this. So.
I just feel like we could spend hours. It's just there's so many things I want to ask you about, or just really just want to hear about your story and things. Your story, it's like a movie. You are writing a book, aren't you?
Yeah, I have a lot of notebooks. I was writing a book actually, and I kept like I was just hitting a wall. I was like, God, I can't figure this out. All my writing is crap, and I just kept tossing the notebooks to the side, and then I was just like, I'm not doing this. And a couple months later, I started going through my notes and I'm reading I was like, who wrote this stuff? Like, this is amazing. Like, and yeah, so there's definitely a book in all these notes for sure.
Yeah. Do you keep a journal?
I have many journals, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, there you go. That's your material.
Many journals, like for years now. They're just like all I can see them all over the place. Right?
Yeah. So you're very natural at it. For me, when I read it and it was, I said, oh my gosh, who is this Christopher? I want to talk to him. It's that beautiful. It's just that it just. Hang on, sorry.
I was like, copywriters are reaching out to me and they're like, who wrote your copy? Who did this? And I was like, it's not copy, it's just something I wrote while I was on the phone with somebody. It just like felt like sharing it, you know. And so I have pictures in my phone from, you know, from all those times, and I never like erased them. But anytime I wanted to like go back and see them, I really couldn't see them. You know, I was like, I couldn't stomach it. I was like just avoiding it. There was like a lot of shame over it and things. And so this was like one of the times where I went back and like one, I was just like, man, you know, got to give myself like a lot of credit from where I came from. And two, I didn't have no shame over it, no nothing. And then some told me like I should do it before and after, like just to put it out there because a lot of people don't know. And it wasn't like easy to just put it out there, but I was like, I committed to it. I was like, I'm gonna turn off my Facebook for 2 days because I didn't trust myself to not go on there and like erase it. And so by the time I went on there, I was just like, whoa, this is like overwhelming, you know, love and support, and like the reach was insane. And then so I started sharing them in groups, like Facebook groups, a couple of days ago, and then again did the same thing. I was like, I'm not going on here. And when I went back, it was like thousands of people. I was just like, oh my God, this is like immense. So yeah, I'm glad I did. Yeah,
it is, because it's when you share your the part that you feel shamed of, and other people resonate, because a lot of us, we feel shamed and we don't feel like, oh, I don't want to put myself out there. But then when we hear, oh, Christopher is saying that, and that's okay for me too. And then we can all go heal. And
yeah,
a beautiful
funny
thing.
thing, like a lot of people that I was like I would compare myself to, and I was like, oh, they got it all figured out, and I would just like make myself, you know, feel crappy about it. Like they were reaching out with just like, man, I wish I can share my story, and I'm going through this and this and this. And I was like, oh wow, this whole time I just figured, you know, you had it all figured out. And it's just like, it was eye-opening. It was
Absolutely. It's how interesting. I often say in the past, I feel, because I had my own insecurity, and I look at people like what you just said, and I compare people. Oh, these people, they are so, they know so much, and then they have achieved so much, and they look so beautiful, all the things. And you compare what you, I think one of the ladies told me, and then she compare her insides to people's outsides, which you never know what's going on inside of them. And then
yeah.
actually, I haven't noticed a lot of people actually. I feel like, because my heart is full, and now I see people just like who they are, like a person. And there's a lot more to, you know, what we wear, how we look, and what we have. And I look at everyone, I genuinely look at everyone as who they are, like a person, not, oh, this one drives $1 million car or have $1 billion house. Really not much of a difference. But, and actually those people, in fact, they have probably a lot more inside and we don't know about. I actually often look at them with compassion, because there's a lot of people showing off or having things, and inside they still just like us. They want to feel loved, and they feel shamed. They want to be cared about. So just everybody's the same. I'm so grateful that you share your story.
Thank you. I was at this at one of my trainings, and there was just like a lot of successful people there, and they broke us up in groups. And like I love people, you know, and I love like socializing. And so I would go to every single group, you know, but they broke us up like in groups of 4. So I have my own group, but even after a while I would go hang out with this group and hang out with this group. And I would just like show up, and then I would hear the conversation, and it was mostly that, like, I have a, you know, a plane, I have this house, I have this. And it was just like this like surface conversation. And I would sit down and I'm just like, what's your favorite color? What was it like growing up? And what is your favorite, like, just start asking these questions. Then I would leave, and then they would continue the conversation. And then later they would come to me and they're like, we've been here for a week and we didn't know nothing about each other. And you just came, you started the conversation. And I feel like I know my whole group so much better. And I'm just like, I just like really care about people and their stories. So when you sent me that and I see what you were doing, I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna like this thing.
Yeah, that's beautiful. What kind of event was that?
Oh, so this was for my NLP trainings, neuro-linguistic programming and timeline and hypnotherapy and hypnosis. Like we were getting trained in all those modalities. And so I did like 3 of those and just met like amazing people from all over the world. And so the training company that I went to, they also are in Australia. It's a Tad James company. I don't know if you heard of them, but so they have like this, like the big training is called trainers training, where they basically like train you to become a trainer. And so they only have 2 of those here, one out here and one in Australia. So some of the people in Australia don't want to wait. So for that one, I met so many people from Australia. Like, they're just amazing people. I love Australians.
So it's all Zoom meetings?
No, this was in person. This was in Henderson. This was 2019, right before the pandemic. Yeah, so this was all in person.
So you came to Australia?
No.
Or people went to?
Yeah, people from Australia came out here because the company's based out of Australia and out here. So they'll come here, they'll train some people. They go in Australia, train some people for practitioner and master practitioner. But then they have another training where it's like they train you to become a trainer. And in that one, they only have 2 a year. And so some of the people that were waiting in Australia didn't want to wait for the Australian one. So a lot of them flew to the States. And so I met like a bunch of people from Australia, and it's like, yeah.
Wow. Wow. Yeah,
everyone,
I heard.
Like everyone's so nice. Like every Australian I've ever met has been just amazing.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I think most Australians are very laid back, very easygoing. And then I love here. And then particularly the sunny coast. It's just so beautiful almost every day.
Yeah.
Just
I look forward to going out there.
Hey, come and visit me.
Yeah, I look forward to going to Australia. I cannot wait.
All right. So Christopher, you know, you have so many things. I was reading, actually, there's a particular post, and I was just loving it. Like everything about the whole story and then how you transform your life and everything. But I guess, yeah, that's why I asked you, how long do you have? The thing I'm most interested about is your mom. I would like to know, maybe share a little bit about your mom. What kind of person she is?
She's an angel. She's like, if you know Mother Teresa, she's just very similar to Mother Teresa. My mom is just like amazing. She was born in Cuba. She came from Cuba in 1980 when they had when all the refugees came out, they opened it up. And so my sister was born out there, and she was pregnant with my brother at the time. And she definitely had like a lot of challenges at like during those times. She was very close to my grandma, her mom, and she had committed suicide when my mom was about like 16. And what was hard about that is that so when my mom was born, her dad's mom, so her grandma, my great grandma, she like didn't want anything to do with her because she had invested so much into my grandpa to like get educated, go to, in Cuba, you were either, in those days, you were either going to go work the fields or you were going to like be educated and make some of yourself. And so, and that opportunity was mostly for the men. And then her being single and raising my grandpa, she like really invested in him and his education and going to school, and like that's what she had planned for him. And then he meets my grandma, my mom's mom, like super beautiful lady. They're young, and then she ends up getting pregnant. And so my mom's grandma wasn't like too happy about that. She's like, I don't want nothing to do with the baby. You completely throwing your life away. And like, you know, she just wasn't too happy about it. When my mom is born at about like 3 to 6 months, I'm not sure, maybe like 6 months, her mom gets sick. And so when she gets sick, my mom's grandma had to take her in because she couldn't be around my mom. It wasn't like a terminal illness. It was like some kind of, I don't know what it was. It was something where she couldn't be with my mom. So my mom was separated from my mom, you know, at 6 months old, brought to my grandma to just stay there for, it was supposed to be like a month or till my grandma got better. And so my mom's grandma just completely fell in love with her, like completely fell in love with her. And she's like, you're not having this baby back, you know? And so she like took her in and she raised her. And so my mom's mom would go, you know, stay with them. Like she had her own place, but my grandma just kind of like, just, you know, took care of my mom. And it could have been like 6 months or something. But by the time they went to go get her back, she's like, you're staying here. So my mom, you know, grew up with her grandma, and she always like wanted to go back to go live with her mom. Like this is something that she had always wanted to do. And so like after many, many years, my grandma finally told my mom, like, you can come live with me. You know, and she was about 16 years old at this time now. It's like a lot of years came by. She's like, yeah, we're gonna live and we're gonna have our own place. We're gonna be together. So my mom was like so happy, telling all her family members, you know, like, I'm leaving with my mom, and like saying her goodbyes to everybody and telling her friends. And like, she was really, really happy. And then about like, I don't know how long after, just a couple months or something, her mom ended up passing away. It was through like a suicide. They say she had locked herself in the house with the stove running and like the gas or whatever, and she passes away. There was an attempt, I guess, on her behalf to like try to get out after, but I guess she had passed out on the floor, and so she probably had a change of mind. But you know, that happened. So she was going through, like, she always was going through some like mental challenges herself, you know. And so that like really, really affected my mom. But my mom, on the surface, you know, she acted like as if it didn't, you know. She just like seemed very like nonchalant about it. But she said it was every night just internalizing it. Like, how could you leave me? Like, she would just talk to her as if she was there. She like, she would go to the grave and she would scream, and she's like I want to go in there with you. Like, she just wanted to like pretty much just die, you know. She meets my sister's dad, and then you know, she's young, she gets pregnant to have my sister. They I don't know how long they were together. They eventually like separated, but my mom and my sister were like super close, like like really, really close. And so my sister kind of would be in charge kind of my mom, or she just like really took it upon herself to like care for my mom and always be there. My mom would say that like when kids would come, you know, like, hey, let's go play. And she's like, no, I'm staying here with my mom. And she just was like always like at the hip with my mom. And my mom said like the relationship was more, instead of like mother-daughter, it was more like a friend, you know, kind of thing. And like that my sister was just like taking the role of like taking care of her, like being there for her, you know. And so they she would go on to meet my brother's dad, and she ends up, you know, pregnant with my brother's dad. And he worked for like the government, like for the army, something. He was like kind of top official in the army in Cuba. And so he would always tell her like, I'm off on work, I have to do this. Like, he was always gone. And then coming to find out, like, he had a whole nother wife and kid, and like my mom was just like, you know, the mistress or whatever. And so my mom's like very strong character. Like, it doesn't matter. She's like, if she loves you or anything, like she cuts you off, she cuts you off, you know. So he told her like, that's fine, you can have him. Like I'm done with him, you know. And she walked away. She said it like it really tore her up inside, but she didn't let them see that, you know. So when they opened up the things for the Cubans to come out, it was 1980. My sister's the one that gave my mom the idea, like, we should go to America. And my mom like had no plans on going. And so my mom's like, okay, we're gonna go. But at the time, like Castro, he was letting people go, but you had to like interview in order to go, and you had to like just act like if like you just weren't gonna work, you weren't gonna do anything. He's just trying to get rid of certain people that he didn't want there. At the same time, opening up the prisons and releasing all the lifers and rapists and criminals, like at the same time. So this is why they made the refugee camps, so that they can like sift through who were the prisoners, who were the just, you know, the civilians and things like that. So when mom's in line, they separate in the lines. Like, so my mom's dad, my grandpa, and my sister were in one line. My mom was in another line, I think, with her aunt or with someone else. They grant my mom to be able to go. They tell my sister and my mom's dad that they can't go, and they're gonna leave the next day. So my mom's like, okay, I'm just gonna wait with you guys. And my mom's dad was like, just go. We're gonna get back in line tomorrow, you know, because they were just letting everyone out. And she's like, don't trip. We're just gonna meet you in Miami. They thought it was just a simple boat ride across, and you know, and like, I'll see you there the next day. So my mom leaves the next day while they're waiting to get in line to get the visa or get the okay to leave. And so at that time, they weren't letting no more people out. So my mom's like on the boat now. When the boat that she gets on breaks down, they're drifting out in the ocean for who knows like how long, and everyone on the boat is going crazy. And my mom's just like pregnant, and just like, she said she laid down on the boat, and she was just like, man, if I fall in this ocean, like, I hope a shark just like eats me. Like, please God, don't let me drown out here. And they would go on to get found by a Coast Guard. Like, they seen them floating by. They like, they had to get them out the boat. As soon as they get them out the boat sinks. Like, right when they get one of the last people off, she's on this boat. And then they transform to another Coast Guard boat. And then from then, they're supposed to go, you know, they told them it's just going to be 72 hours while we check, you know, at the refugee camp, which it ended up being 3 months, you know. So now she's in this refugee camp by herself. Can't, you know, lost contact with my sister and her dad. And so, and she's in here with all these like rapists and killers and like, you know, she hadn't never been in an environment like that, you know, and so she said that was like really, really tough. There's like so many stories, you know, just within that, like all the things that happened those 3 months at the refugee camp. And she finally like gets, you know, gets released from there. And she has a family member through her mom's side in Miami. So my mom goes over there. She figures, oh, I'm just gonna go over there. They're gonna take me in. We're gonna figure this out. She shows up with my brother, and then pregnant with my brother. She hadn't had him yet. So she shows up pregnant with my brother, and they're like, no, we're not gonna take it. They give her like $20 and send her on her way. So now she's just like roaming the streets. She doesn't know what to do. She's like super depressed. Like she had been like dealing with all these things. And she's just like, I'm gonna go to a bridge and just throw myself off, right? Like, what's the point of all this? So as she's making her way to the bridge, like a car drives by, and it happened to be some friends of her from Cuba that had like came. They're like, Mabel, what are you doing? Their name's Mabel. They're like, what are you doing? And she's just like, oh, hysterical. And they're like, we're gonna, you know, you're coming with us, you know, we're gonna take you in. So they take her back with her. And so she's staying there with them. She has my brother. And she's staying there with them for a while. The house was more like a party house, like there's all these like, you know, like an intense environment, a lot of drinking, a lot of drugs being done. My mom really wasn't like doing that, and so she didn't really want to be there. She would go on to she loses contact with my sister for like about a year. Like it took like a year before they ever even talked again, you know. And then finally they talk, and my mom's like figuring out a way that she can bring her out here. She would go on to meet my dad. She gets, you know, she ends up getting pregnant. She's staying with him. And then like, he just completely like switched up on her. And so he was like really, really nice with my brother, like really playing the role, being really cool. And then she ends up getting pregnant. And so they're together. And then like, he ends up like leaving and finding another like woman and bringing her home. And he's like, you know, this is who I'm with now. And so my mom just like, yeah, she just wasn't having it, you know. So eventually she leaves. She gets like, you know, she has like this job, and she ends up getting like renting a room somewhere or whatever. And then she has me, and we're there about like 6 months before she just decides to like leave. You know, some things happened. She left from Miami to San Francisco. So she came out from Miami to San Francisco with my brother. He was 2 years old. I was 6 months old. And then that's how we started our life out here in San Francisco. And then, yeah, we've pretty much been here ever since. My mom was still like, she really didn't have control over her emotions. She was like very like hysterical. She was never like ever abusive with us, you know, but it was just like her own thoughts, you know. She would like leave us there sometimes. Like, why would she go out and like have her nervous breakdowns? Like, we wouldn't know. She was just like going through a lot emotionally, you know, and so this was going on for a couple of years till like one day she's watching a TV show with a preacher. His name was Jimmy Swagger, and you know, he's preaching, he's talking about God, all that, and then my mom like gives her life to God. And then that's where like my mom's relationship with God kind of like started to read the Bible and got like really close to God. And like, I mean, it took a while, you know, but over time, like everything just started changing for her, per se. Like, I mean, we still had all the challenges being a single mother with 2 kids, you know, in poverty, you know, these just crazy neighborhoods and environments, you know, and just like the struggle, you know. But she was like saved, and she was, you know, in her Bible and in prayer and just constantly like transforming her. And so and she just, yeah, a lot of things like really changed for her as far as she would say she wasn't crazy anymore. And yeah, that's just like a small snippet of her story. And then let's
Wow.
see. She, you know, she struggled with us, like raising us. She never really like brought any, and there was never like no men in the house. Like no one ever, it was just me, my brother, and my mom, and like that's all it was, you know. overwhelming amounts of love. Like she, you know, cared for us like no one else. But you know, raised on welfare, Section 8, public housing, you know, getting paid, you know, jobs $20, $30 a day on food stamps, like, you know, just struggling to get by. But, you know, she did, you know, raise us in the church and just like taught us a lot about the Bible. She always yeah, she took like really, really good care of us. She would go on to then like get this like feeling in her heart. I used to get mad at her because like all the kids in school, they would have the video games, they would have the nice shoes, they would have the, you know, the nice jackets and all that. They'd have cable TV, you know, so all the kids are over there talking about TV shows that I didn't even know what they're talking about and games that I never saw. I'm just like, Mom, like why? You know, kids are getting dropped off in cars and like we would, you know, she'd walk us there and I'm like, you know, like don't walk us here, you know, like you're embarrassing us, you're wearing the same, you know, clothes every day. And like we were, you know, just giving her a hard time. And then my mom had decided that she wanted to do like missionary work. You know, my mom always just, she loved kids, she loved people, and like especially like people less fortunate, you know, and she's like, oh, people have it so much worse than we have it, and like you don't know, you know. And I always known her like just to be the one to like preaching to the homeless people and like talking to lay, just like super compassionate, super loving, always, you know, preaching about God and the love of God. And like she had this like big transformation, like her life was changed. So she was just always like to everyone, anyone and everyone that she could. She's like, you don't understand, like you don't have to be suffering, like God loves you. And so she like wanted to do some missionary work and she didn't know where she was going to do it. She would go from church to church sharing her testimonies. Because I mean, like for example, there was one story where she, you know, she's on welfare, so she would get like checks, you know, from you know, like help from the government, maybe like twice a it was like twice a month. It's probably like $150 or something every 2 weeks. And so when we went to go change our check, she would like, that's the one time she would take us to McDonald's. Sometimes, you know, we'd be able to like to get some at McDonald's. So we're at McDonald's and some kid was like, oh, like he wanted something from, you know, some food from McDonald's. And she's like, yeah, sure. So she goes up to the front to like go pay. And then when she goes to take out her purse, he snatches her purse and takes off running. And so she's like left with like no money, you know, like nothing. And we don't even know what's going on. And we go back to the house. We like we don't have anything to eat. We're like down to like the last like egg, you know, and she's painted on the egg and we're just playing, having a game, and she doesn't know what to do. But she was like so committed to God and like so committed to the Bible. She's like, I'm not gonna go steal anything. I'm not, like it says right here in your word, like you'll provide, you know, it says like if he loves, like, and she's like, I don't know what I'm gonna do. Like, God, I really don't know. But it says that like, you know, that you're gonna take care. Like her relationship with God was very like personal. Like she would talk to him like if he was, you know, like that was the only person she would really like talk to. And then she's like, I don't know what I'm gonna do, you know. And so we're sitting there and then finally we're like, Mom, can we like eat this? You know, like we're really like hungry, you know. My mom's like, man, I don't know what to do. So she was about to go make it. And then randomly there's a knock at the door. And so when we go open the door, there's like all these grocery bags like just sitting at our door. Like she don't even know how it happened, you know. So she always like, these are just like one of like many stories where just like plain miracles would just like happen. And so like her conviction in God was like so strong. Like a lot of people could tell her like, oh, that's just like a made up character, or just this, or like people would always argue Bible with her and religion with her and everything. And she's like I have my own personal experience. Like I've witnessed miracles, you know, like so she always would go around sharing her testimony in churches. And it wasn't until like so many years later, next to this church, next door to this house we were living at, that she would go and she shared her testimony. And like this older lady comes up and she's like, oh my God, like, you're the lady. Like I'm the one that left the food at your door. And she's like, what? Like how did you know? Because they didn't know each other. And she's like, well, every month, she was a single lady, you know, senior citizen. And, you know, she had money, but she had no kids. She had no husband, no nothing. So she would feed like 3 families every month. Like that was her, what she would do. She would buy groceries for 3 different families. And then one of the families she had took it to, she she they have food already, you know. They're just like, give it to someone who needs it. So she goes back home and she doesn't know. And she's sitting there praying like, God, I don't know who this is for, but this and that. And like, she has it, like, take it to this building downtown, like way across town, leave it at this door and just leave. And so that's what she did. And like, and yeah, so just things like that, So my mom, she decided like she wanted to do some missionary work. And so she's like, I want to go. She didn't know where she was going to go. And she decided with Mexico. Like one of her friends from the church was telling her how there was this ranch in Mexico she was from. Like kids had no shoes. There's no running water there. There's like, no one knows about God. There's just like, it's like really poor. My mom's like, we're going to go there, So my mom, she tries to go, tell the church like, oh, I want to go on a missions trip and this and that. And they're like, well, you can't go because you're not married. We're not going to fund it. Yeah. Yeah, but she was like, they didn't allow her to go, they just like, you can't do it. My mom was like so upset and she's like, and so, but God kept telling her like, you're gonna go, like this is like, he was telling her to go. So my mom she's decided, she's like, I'm gonna go and I'll figure it out myself. So she's going around from like church to church, sharing this testimony, talking about this dream of her that she has of like opening a church in this ranch and like working with these kids. And as she's going, like people are giving her like they'll raise an offering and they'd give it to her. My mom would just save it and people would come like donate some shirts or some toys like for her mission. And she would shove it in the closet. And like this whole time, like, Mom, who are these toys for? Like, who are these shirts for? And I was like, she's like, they're for the poor kids. And I'm like, we're the poor kids. Like, why can't we have these? She's like, no, you don't understand. Like one day you'll understand, And I would get like so frustrated with her and I'm seeing these toys and all these things. And I'd be like, why are we saving these things for like other kids? Like we're the ones in need. And so my mom like almost got all her things ready. And now she was just waiting to like get enough. She got her plane ticket, but she didn't want to go without us. And so that was like the final thing, that she needed. And so finally there was a supermarket down the street from our house. And the guy had heard about it through people in the neighborhood and everything, like this lady, because she's Cuban, right? She's not even from Mexico, but she had heard about, some Cuban lady that wanted to go do some work in Mexico. And it happened to be a ranch that he had grown up on. He was like a successful supermarket store owner. And he goes and he tells her, like, what do you need help with? And she's like, I already have all the things. Like, we need one more plane ticket for he's like, I'll pay for your son's plane ticket. So boom, we're off to like, to Mexico. We get out there and, we have all these things. And like, mind you, it's just like, I never realized like how dangerous like it could actually be, because I just like, my mom was always so sure of herself. And so when we get there, but it's just her and us. And like, and she has all these things and they're like, where are you going? She's like, I'm taking it to this ranch, So, she had some like situation where like people were going to take it from her. And she's like, no one's taking this from me. Like God sent me here. Like this is, and they're like, no, like she's like, no, not only are you not taking it, but you guys are going to take me to where I'm taking this too, and they're like, who is this lady? And they're like, so we get took into, because, we fly to the city of Mexico. And even from then, it's like an hour and a half drive to this just secluded ranch in the middle of nowhere. And then here we show up like unannounced, like nobody even knows. And my mom has like all these toys, all these like clothes and all these things. And we open up and like all the kids line up, and they're just coming and they're giving them like literally one t-shirt or just some sandals. And they're like the happiest I've ever seen. I've never seen kids like so happy, especially over something so small. And I remember all the kids were coming up to me, like, is that your mom? Like, you have the coolest mom in the world. And like, I was like, damn, I've always given her such a hard time, And like, I don't know, just like seeing that, like, it shifted my whole like worldview. Like, it's like, we still would deal, with poverty for our whole lives still after. But it was like, I never complained anymore. Like when I came back, like and people didn't understand. Like people were just like, oh, you don't have this. I'm like, you don't even know like how good you have it, And like anything that I had, I'm like, Mom, can we send this back? Like if I would say some of it, like, I'm like, there's kids out there with actually nothing, like people actually have nothing. And, but no one understood it. But I was just so grateful for that experience because it really did, like, it changed everything for me. We got to go to the prisons. Like my mom found the prison out there, and she like went to go preach to like all the guys in the prison. They're like, who is this lady, you know? And like that would start her journey as far as like traveling to different countries, and like she goes to Nicaragua. She went to El Salvador, and there was like these like dumpsters where all the kids, you know, she heard about a dumpster where all the kids like just wait twice a day for the city to come bring all the garbage, you know, from the inner city, and they all sift through the garbage trying to find food. And so she went out there and like, you know, just gathering all the kids, taking them to restaurants and just like teaching them about the love of God, and like, and just pouring into them. And there was like this neighborhood where like all these girls were being like being sold. They're just all prostitutes, but they're 12, 13 years old. And so like she's going out there and like just like pouring into people, and like, yeah, so that's just like my mom pretty much.
It's so interesting. Before we got on a call, I can't talk and I need a minute. Before we got on a call, and I was somehow, and I normally say a prayer or meditate, and then I was just really meditating, and then somehow I had an impression to go grab a box of tissue. I normally don't. Anyway, and let me ask you, you guys share some more stories first. I guess for me, you bring the spirit, the God. So that's how I call when I'm touched. I'm not sad. Yeah. How would you describe your relationship with God?
There's this I don't know if you've seen it. There was just like this cartoon where there's this baby, and he's like in his diaper, and he somehow gets away. It's like probably on Looney Tunes or one of those cartoons, I forget, but I used to see when I was little. And like he would get away, and he's just like walking, like just all nonchalant, like crawling, should I say, like everywhere. And like he'll go by, and like this anvil's coming down, it'll just like barely miss him. And like he'll walking on the ledge, and then something would just like miraculously pull up there and like pick him up. And like everywhere he goes, he's just like in so much danger, but he's not even aware that he's like walking to all this danger. And like somehow he's just always, something just miraculously shows up. And so I've always like recently I've been really seeing, like, I was like, that I've been that kid, you know, where like he's just always been there, like always been there. And like, yeah, I would say my relationship as far as like prayer, and so I've gotten more into like going to church now, and like, you know, I definitely like talk with God now, and I pray. But for a long time, like I was also like angry with God. And yeah, I would say like just I was so angry. I was just so angry, and I was just blaming God for things that, you know, I shouldn't really. I didn't know who else to blame. Probably didn't want to blame myself. But even at those times where I was like the most angry, like he was always there, like just always there. And so I would like describe my relationship as like just a loving father, and I'm just like a hard-headed son. um, yeah, it's really hard-headed, but never been left. I've never been left ever, my whole life.
So at the start, when you first went to church, and what was that like? What was church to you? And when you first went to church?
When I first got into church, the fact that you know, I had this like experience way before like church had happened, where I was in a building that we were living in, and I used to wait for my brother to come home from school. And that was like the highlight of my day, you know, like just my brother coming home. You know, he had went off to school first. And so he would get dropped off by a school bus, you know, in the front. I'd come down, wait for him. I don't remember if like I would wait for him. Maybe I would come down with the I want to say she was like a babysitter, but it was also like there was this lady with her daughter, and then it was my mom and us two, and like we all rented one room. So it was like super packed, like literally just like one room. And but I guess when my mom would be off at work, like she'd be watching us. And I remember like trying to like escape from her so I can go wait for my brother. I always thought I was like, I always thought I was older than I actually was. I always was like trying to be independent, like I did. Like I was always trying to be independent, and so I always found like sneaky ways to get away. And then I had gotten away, and then yeah, like someone in the building had, you know, had followed me into the elevator. You know, they like hit the emergency thing on the elevator. They molested me, and then they, you know, gave me a quarter and left. You know, and I remember like that just like that really just like it changed like the whole world. You know, like it really changed my whole world, and especially how like I I interacted with the world, but I never told nobody. I didn't know like how to tell my brother. I definitely didn't want to tell my mom because I just always had this like feeling that she was already dealing with enough as it was. So I didn't want to like burden her with anything, you know. And it was also like I know, you know, like thinking back, he was like the guy told me like not to tell nobody, and like he would hurt me, and so it was just something that I like just internalized and never like told, but I never felt like safe really much after that. And so like unless I was with my mom and my brother, you know, but I felt like church had kind of became that place for me, like where I could, you know, where I could be safe. And it took a while like for me to really break out of my like my shell. And school was that too. You know, I was going to school. Like I started going to school, kinder, really like really good teacher, really, really good teacher. And first grade, really good teacher. And like I was enjoying school, I was enjoying church. And so for me, like just being around other kids and being around like, you know, um, I guess I was craving safety and like a safe place, you know? And so it was like around, so I really loved church. I really loved the idea of like, of God. And, you know, I would have my mom like read us Bible stories like all the time. Like that's what we would go to sleep with. And like, I could like tell her the Bible stories, you know, like I just knew them all. And I would like really see how people were living their lives in the church, and I'd call them out, like, you know, the Bible says you can't do this, and people are just like, and like I was just very like observant of everybody, and so I went on to like have just a really like unfortunate situation with a teacher where she was just very like abusive and just like just like very like bad towards me. And so, like, they had told her before they came in, because I was like excelling in all my classes. And then even when I came in, they're like, "We're bringing you like probably one of the smartest kids in the school, and and we might even have to skip them." You know, like I was just doing so good. And I remember they would give us these like our report cards. We wouldn't get A's, B's, or C's. It was just like the E for excellent, a S was for satisfactory, and then a U for unsatisfactory. And I never got a S or U. It was always all E's. And I remember bringing them and like seeing the look on my mom's face and like how happy it would make her. So that was like my ultimate why. And that's like I would strive so much to like make sure that like, you know, I can bring these home all the time. And so when I came to this teacher's class, like even from the first day, she's like, "You're the smart kid, like you." And then she just started like, "There's nothing special about you, you know?" And like it was like, what? Because I had been, you know, I've always had like all these good teachers, and like, and she just made it really like really difficult for me, you know. But I kept striving, I kept trying, and I would like give my work, and she'd like rip it up. you know, like it'll be classwork or something. She'd like tear it up, and I'd go to recess, and I'm outside doing my work, and I'll come back, and I'll, you know, I'm like, here it goes again. And she would like tell me, like, she would like, why do you keep trying? Like, she would get so angry with me, and like, or she'll hold me in class and not go to recess. And she had this mood ring, and she'd like shove it in my head, and she's like, don't you know how dumb you are? And this is why your dad left you. And like, she was just like, I was like, I really don't understand what her like her problem was. Like, I honestly wish I could have asked her, you know, but for whatever reason, I really didn't care, because I was like, as long as I get these like good grades, you know, like that's all that really mattered. Like, I'll take all this abuse or whatever. But I remember getting my first report card, and it was like all E's, and she had gave me a U for like misbehaving in class. Like the only thing she could get me for, you know, because like I had done all the other work. And I remember looking at it, and it wasn't until recently at one of my trainings when like I didn't realize the decision I had made at the time. But I remember looking at it, and I was like, I was crushed, and I was like no matter how hard you try, like there's just no point, you know. And maybe she's right, you know, and this and that. And so I just like withdrew from school. Like school was like no longer a place that I even wanted to even try it. But again, I wasn't telling nobody about this. This is all like, I mean, it was like the perfect kid to do it, because she was able to get away with it, you know, because I wasn't going to tell anybody. And so the last thing I had was like church, you know, that was like the one place that like I feel I could excel in. And like I knew all the Bible stories, and when it was Bible drill time, I was always like um on point. Like I always, you know, I really enjoyed the church. I enjoyed like the other kids there, and I really loved God, you know. That was like my thing. But then you know, I don't know exactly like how old. It was definitely after like the school thing, maybe fourth, fifth grade. Like you know, someone had came in the church, and he just, you know, he started molesting like kids in the church, you know. I didn't realize he was doing it to kids. I knew it was happening to me, and he was very manipulative. But like looking back now, I do kind of see like who else it happened to, because like those were also kids that even like long down the line they ended up with alcohol problems and like all these issues that, and no one was talking about it, you know. But again, like I never told my mom, I never like said anything. And like at that point I was just like, I was just so angry, you know. And I was just like, I don't even care, you know. And like the fact that it was happening there, I really just like blame God for it. I was just like, I think that just kind of like, I just stopped caring, you know, about like anything. But since I never really told my mom, she didn't know what she was dealing with, you know. She just knew that like I had changed, you know. And she would tell me, like, she would always like tell me like what's going on, and you can tell me, and is there anything, like, is this going on, is that going on? I was like, no, nothing. Like, I don't like school, I don't like church, I don't want to go anymore, I don't, you know. And so like I feel really like I really felt bad for my mom, because she just had no idea what was going on. And she really had to like deal with the fact that like now I wasn't showing up to school, you know. And like and this was early on. So the teacher, I stopped going to that class, and she would still mark me as if I was going to the class, so the school didn't even know. And then so I get to the next grade, and like at that point, like I'm not even really like barely showing up there, definitely not doing no work. And at that point, like that teacher wasn't bad, but I was behind, and I didn't want to like confront the fact that I was behind and that I didn't know like what was going on. And so I just would like act like a class clown and act like I didn't care. And like I used to always sit in the front, like now I start sitting in the back. And so like I there now when I look at like I used to think like nobody cared, no one was helping me, but I don't even think I was like allowing anybody to really like, you know, come in and help. And so and then also like the fact that like um yeah, I don't know. I would just like stop. I didn't care about authority. Like no one, I wasn't like opening up to anybody. You know, I was angry, but I didn't know how to tell people I was angry. I was sad, but I didn't know how to say I was sad. So I just like eventually they found out like towards the end of like fifth grade. It was like the unified school district. They had done the whole thing. They're like, yo, this kid has been like, he barely comes to class. He's like, what's going on? So they go ask my mom. And so when that came to my mom, it was like a shock to her. Like, oh, he's being expelled from school. This was like in the fifth grade. And she's like, what do you mean he's being, because I would still bring homework home, you know? So she would like check my homework. Like I still played the role, you know, I'd ask other kids, what's your homework? And I'd make it up and I'd be at home studying and I'd go to, and she's like, why are you not getting a report? Oh, they don't give them no more. I was like, very like, you know, and my mom, you know, hard enough as it was, you know, doing like, you know, trying to just feed us and like keep things going with us. But it was just kind of came as a shock to her. And I remember that moment where she's just like, what's really going on? And like, she's like, you haven't been going to school? Like, what is all this homework you always have? What are these, like, you telling me like stories as if like you're going to school? Like, it was just kind of a shock to her. And then now she, you know, she had to start taking time off of work. She wasn't even like really like having a job. She would kind of, she's kind of like a housemaid, you know, she'd find houses that she can clean and these like rich neighborhoods. They would treat her like crap, you know. Some people would like pay her throwing money on the floor, and like they would just accuse her of like stealing things, or like just, she just had a lot like on her plate. And then now it's like she would have to like come drop me off in school, and she would like wait, you know, and I would, you know, I go into class, act like I'm in class, and then I'd come out of school and she'd be outside and she'd like grab me and she's like crying, like, what's going on? Why won't you go to school? And so yeah, I really gave her like a hard time with that. And then she would always like, we're going to church, you know, she wanted to go to church. And I just like, I like withdrew from church and I started acting up in church. And like now everyone's telling her like, you got bad kids and your kids are gonna end up in gangs and this and that. And my mom was like always like sticking up for us. But it just like over that, like at that point, like my relationship with God just kind of like, it just withdrew, you know. And I could just say like I was really, really angry with him. But my mom always told me like, you have these like these Bible verses that I would like memorize. And she's like, anytime there's anything like God is your dad and you can always call on him. And like you always, you know, anytime you're in trouble, you can do this. And like things would happen, you know, but it wasn't that bad. Like I would like be in probably somewhere I shouldn't be, you know, and then like I'd get beat up, you know, and I was like, but it was kind of like a little warning, you know, like don't go to that area because like kids would end up dead in these areas and things like that. So my mom would always say like my mom would tell my brother like don't go to this one place. I forgot where it was for my brother. You know, she's like I don't want you going over there. It's dangerous over there. For me, it was like this like store where I would watch people play video games and it's like really dangerous. They're selling drugs. And my mom was like, don't go there. And telling us every day not to go there, and we'd always still like end up going there. And then both of us in the same day, like we both got like punched in the eye, you know, like at the same time, we're both coming home, like we just meet up, like we're both like walking like this. And my mom was just like when we talk about it now, she's like God would always make sure, you know, you got, you know, if I couldn't be there, you know, that like, you know, so, but there would always be like moments like, so I would be mad, but anytime anything happened, like I remember like always praying my way out of it, always using these like I would, and I always ended up like okay, you know, like nothing really like too crazy happened to me. But at this point I was just, I couldn't wait to leave my mom's house. And my brother was more like more behaved, more yeah, my brother was more like a homebody, like he wanted to stay home more. And so like he liked playing video games, watching TV. Like I always wanted to be outside. Like that was my thing. Like anytime I could be outside, I just always wanted to be outside. And my mom kind of would notice like how I was. So I feel like my mom would like lean more on me, like to make sure, you know, my brother was like, oh, you know, you like him more. And my mom's just like, no, like you don't understand. Like your brother is like headed down a different path. And like she wasn't too worried about my brother, you know, and that's why she would always like be on me. But yeah, as far as that, I just kind of withdrew, and I didn't want nothing to do with God. I didn't want nothing to do with the church. I didn't want nothing to do with school. I didn't want nothing to do with authorities. I just like wanted to just like I figured I can figure it all out on my own, you know. And yeah, so it wasn't until like just recently where I actually started going back to church and actually you know, I go consistently, and I've been like a lot more, you know, praying and like I haven't opened up a Bible. Like I've read, you know, like so many books. Like I read everything I could read to not read the Bible. You know, like I have found, I'm like looking for answers I don't even know the answer that I'm looking for. Like, I remember that one day I was like, I know I'm looking for something, but I don't know what it is, you know? And I've always been searching. My mom always tells me, she's like, you can read every book you want, you know, but you need to open your Bible. Like, you need to look in your Bible. And then I'm always trying to like one up her. Like, I'm like, Mom, this is what I learned. And look at this. And like, I'll teach her this. And she's like, well, it's in the Bible right here. I was like, what? It was already there thousands of years before this one book was like written. And I have come to find out, like, through all the texts, and I go down rabbit holes, and like, it just all leads back somehow to like the Bible, you know, and like to these, yeah, I just feel like it all, and everyone just pulls from the Bible, and then they just make their own, you know, interpretation of it or some kind of different thing. And I mean, I'm not like mad at it, because I feel like I have a large like body of knowledge from just different sources, you know. But at the end, like, it's all, and I still, like, I have my two Bibles there, and like, I'm somewhat knowledgeable of the Bible. I mean, I hear preaching and everything, but me myself sit down, read it, and get into it. Like, I have yet to like get to that point yet, you know. Like, I know I will, but I mean, as of right now, I can say, like, I love God. I'm not mad at God. I was crazy to think that, like, you know, I like had to sit there and say, like, God, I'm sorry, and like, and feeling shame and guilt for how like I treated and everything. It was just like, at one point I just had a realization, like, why would I even think that like God didn't know like my heart truly, you know, and like didn't know that I was just angry, you know, and like, and yeah. So now like my prayers have even changed, you know. I'm just more like in gratitude and just more like thankful, and I kind of see how I've been guided, you know, through my whole life, you know, and like in everything, you know. So still, you know, confused, because I feel like religion has like took a hold of a lot of things, and I feel like you know, people are always going to mess things up, you know, because just, you know, people are just very limited on their views, and so but I'm no longer like looking towards people to like make a judgment on how, on like my personal beliefs, or like how I should live, or anything. It's more so like, yeah, I'm trying to just go straight to the source now.
Yeah, exactly. I actually don't understand a lot of Bible stories. I read a bit. I think I probably like the New Testament a little bit more. They still don't understand a lot of doctrines and things, but yes, a lot of people quote in them. I guess for me, God used different people and to tell different stories. It's like, you tell your story, you helping people who going through what you've been through, and I tell a different story because my journey is different. So everybody shares their stories, and then we can help different type of people. For me, reading Bible, or even just no, actually it helps me, but I don't read. I'm not a big scripture reader. I do read with people who really care about me and want me to, that part of my church, they really want me to learn about the doctrines and things. And I love about, I guess, the discussion things, and there's a lot of things I don't understand, but that doesn't, I guess right now, my understanding of Bible or any scriptures doesn't hinder my connection with God, like what you said. And I also go straight to the source, and then I converse, and I communicate with God. And like I said, yeah, I guess we still need teachers. Like, I appreciate all the leaders, all the things they do, and friendship and all the friends. And also for us, like when we connecting with other people, when we share our stories, and we're really also teaching as well. So people learning from us, and we're learning from each other. But very interesting. I do go to church, but I don't consider myself religious. I don't have probably the traditional view of, if you don't believe in God, you go to hell, and if you're a nice person, you go to heaven, that kind of thing. I just, again, back to, we're all human, and the church people, for me, it's the same as the non-church people. The church people for me is the people who go to church, they want to be better. They want to be kinder, be loving. And the people who don't go to church, they may have a different way, in their ways. Like what you say, I love how you say, why do bad things happen to good people? Is depends on our standards, right? How do we consider good and how do we consider bad? And there's people who think church is bad. And there's the church people think if you don't believe in God and you are bad. That's, just everyone have their own interpretation, their view different. I just look at everybody who's bring joy to others and showing love and being kind, like what your mom did and what she did, and like her story, it just touched me, how even she didn't have much and she wanted to give. That's love. That love just flows. It's not that you have $1 million, $1 billion in your bank. It's you give. Actually, this is from the Bible. The lady who at a well, I think, is something, casting all she had. And then all the wealthy people had, give a lot more, but Jesus said she gave it all. So that's wealth, and that's generous, rather than, I have $1 million, but I give 100,000. That's a lot, but versus somebody may only have $10 and give $9 or $10. And different. How I'm just, so for now, because I think your story went downhill even further, right? And you got into drugs and even worse things. I came from a very different background in China, so my story will be completely the opposite, but I feel like we probably ended up the same place. I didn't know anything about drugs and alcohol or anything. So when I listened to yours, that was just like a story, like a movie, what I watch on a movie. I'm just trying to comprehend. I have never lived it, and I don't even have people, like I don't even know anybody who's lived like life like that. I'm just trying to comprehend the whole what you went through and what went through your head, your mind. And so how did you make sense of what you've been through, your three grade when you were in third grade and your teacher, and then when you're at church and you trusted, that's also a teacher. Like looking back now, what's on your mind? What you're thinking of the people and the things that happened?
I think like, so I did try to make sense of everything for a long time. And I feel like the more that I try to make sense of it, the more like troubling it was for me, because I was just like, why did this happen to me? And then I would get more angry about it. Like I wasn't really getting no closure on it. I wasn't like, I was just like building up resentment towards these things. And then, I was like, God, my life could have been so much more different. And so like, started thinking about like what coulda, shoulda, woulda. And so that would just create more stress. And like looking back now, at least from like how I'm feeling it now today, it's just like, I like to like just distill, like separate the facts from the feelings, from the beliefs, from like these decisions. Like I was like, okay, so like the facts are like these things happened, and even like looking back, they might have not even like I know like things happened, but I created a story out of it, right? Trying to make sense of it. And so the story for the most part was like really disempowering. And it wasn't a story that was like serving me, but it was the only story that I could make at that time, right? Especially like not talking to anybody about it and being so young without like not knowing much. It's like I can only create like stories like this happened to me. I'm the kind of person that this thing's happened to. I'm not like worthy of like a good life, and like there's just there's those people, and then there's me, and like these things are just going to keep happening, and like these stories that I create over like just some circumstances that happen, like are they like, in a way they're sad, you know? I guess it just depends on like how you want to see it. Um, Even that just becomes a story. It's like it happened, you know? It's I could say it's not something that should happen to a kid, and then now I'm creating another story. And so I just really said, like, what happened, happened. Like that's it. That can't be changed, can't go. Like what happened, happened. And then there's just everything else around it. However, I want to like build around it, you know, how I choose to perceive it, how I choose to look at it. Like now it's like I tell stories around it still, but I really try to, even the same with the Bible, it's like I stopped arguing whether like the facts about the Bible, like is this an actual, you know, historical document, or is this just like a story that I can like use for myself? That just like how can I use things to empower me, and how can I use things to empower others? And so that's how I most likely like to, you know, use my experience or any stories that I get. And so um like because those things happen, I'm able to like have this conversation with you, for example, you know, which is like really meaningful to me. Like this moment here with you, like it means like so much to me that I, you know, it led me to here, you know. And this is like a big thing for me. Like I value this, I really like love this, and so and I'm able to share this with you, you know. So that's just one thing. Like if had those things not happen, you know, I wouldn't be able to be here. And like there's people that like, you know, they just, you don't understand myself. Like, I understand, you know, like, let's talk, you know, and then, you know, they're able to put things on me. And it's like, because of my experiences, like I can pour into them. And it's like a whole genre of people that I wouldn't be able to reach. Like, um, I, the road that my life took, like it didn't have to go down the road that it took just from those like couple experiences when I was young. Cause there's plenty of people that things happen to. There's plenty of people that grew up in poverty. There's people that didn't make the decisions that I made, like following all those things, right? But those decisions I was making were leading me down that road because of the way that I was viewing things and the story that I kept running in my head and things that I could like, that is what was shaping a lot of my decisions in those moments, you know, that led, you know, down these like places that, you know, like so I'm just shocked myself sometimes, like how did I end up there, you know? But like all I don't know, just all those things just happen. That's how I like see it. Like things just happen now. And I mean, sometimes I can get in touch with like some of the emotions from it, you know, maybe, you know, like there's, you know, there's probably pain and hurt in there, but it's like not a bad thing that's in it because it's like, it gives me my depth, you know, and it gives me like, because of that immense pain, like I could also feel like so much love, you know, that more so than the average person will, you know. And I can see when someone's hurt, you know, like I can really see it, I can feel it, and it just makes me want to love on them, you know, and like and care. And then was like, well, why would you even care? And it's like, because I know what you're going through, you know. I've felt that, I've been in that dark place. And so um like a lot of these things, like I've turned them around and like kind of like use them as like my superpower now. But it's only because I changed the story. I couldn't really change the facts about what happened. And so that's really how I see things. Like I'm really understanding like the power of perception and how you frame things and like the story that you tell yourself and like how all that shapes everything. Like I was seeing a preaching the other day, and the guy was saying how like in the movies, like directors and stuff, like they pick a frame like when they're sifting through like the final edits of the movie and everything. It's like the frame that they set is really going to determine how the viewer perceives it, right? So they're very intentional about how they set all their frames, because the one scene looks from this angle, it's like a completely different, it'll evoke a completely different emotion, different thought in the viewer if it's shot from a different angle. So I'm like, so it's just, I'm very like, how I frame things now and how I see things now is like I'm very intentional about that. And I try to do it in a way that like that serves me, because I've gone the opposite way, you know? And so like even when I got into meditation, like when I finally did like get sober, um, like I started meditating. And one thing was like I always really thought I was these thoughts that were like really just took a world of their own, and like, you know, and they were constantly playing, and like I just wanted to shut them up, and I didn't want to feel, and I didn't want to. And so when I was able to like just sit down and like calm myself and notice the thoughts that they were happening and they were coming up, and like I was able to separate myself, it gave me like some freedom where I was just like, oh, okay, I don't have to be driven by these thoughts. They're just thoughts that I've been like running for so long, you know, especially at a time where I didn't like know any better. So I created a story out of it, but the story just kept going over and over again. But for whatever reason, I thought that was me doing it. And like, but at that point, it was just running by itself. So when I actually was able to like sit down and separate from that, like even that was a game changer, and like viewing it as just a viewer, right? Just watching it now. And like, now it like allowed me to just like, do I want to like take these thoughts for a ride? Do I just want to let them come and go? And then like after a while they subsided, and they like, you know, they kind of just lost power over me. But um yeah, I don't even know exactly the
Yeah.
question I was answering, but I, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah, totally. No, you've already led up to a lot of things. One is I want to know, how do you look at people when they're doing drugs, going like kids, young kids, and they go not going to school, they lie, maybe not telling their moms. How do you view those kids on the streets?
So I view like those kids and just everyone in general, like everyone, this is like a huge like mindset shift for me, was like everyone's just trying their best. Like everyone is just trying, like literally everybody, even the people I was like would annoy me, and people that just like, who's, you know, why do they think that way? Like there was a moment when I realized, like, no matter what, even like the teacher, however, you know, everyone's like just trying the best. If they do better, if they had a different way, like they would choose that way. They don't know any better. And so a lot of like the shame for me was the being on drugs, especially like how I viewed myself. I was like never the kind of person that would go down that path. Like I'm not the guy that would ever get on. I used to sell drugs. I was like a big drug dealer in my neighborhood, right? So that like when the tables turned, you know, like I never thought. And even then, like the people I would sell drugs to, like when I was, you know, people would treat them like crap, but I always treated them like human beings, and I always would get the most amazing stories from them. And I would sit there and like, you know, I always felt like they always knew more, you know, and they were just like, they're just going through this thing. But so when the tables turned, I was like, I held a lot of shame around just that, and an ego, you know, like, well, you know, like I got caught on like that could have never been me, because I thought there was a problem with the drug. And it wasn't until like, it's really just like a symptom of a much deeper problem, right? Addiction in and of itself, like not just drugs, but people get addicted because they don't know how to self-regulate. They don't know how to self-manage. And like, they're just literally trying the best way they can to deal with some things that they haven't been taught or given the tools to deal with. And so when I see someone that's that on drugs, I really see somebody that's like, I mean, as I have a friend, he just passed away this week. I'll be going to like a funeral pretty soon. And I tried to like, you know, I was like really try to help him every time I would see him. And it was like really hard to help him, because when I would like go like find him, and when I find him, I'm like, you know, like trying to talk him back and like give him things, because he's seen me, like we were together in the same situation. And so just like he can just see that I could do it. But his whole mindset was just like, this is what I want. Like I want to be out here. I want to do drugs. Like I don't, you know? And
Can I
and
bring you back a little bit?
Mhm.
Yeah, because this is so important. I feel like you can help so many people who've been through what you've been through. And then because you walked their shoes, and then you don't judge them. And then the same thing was because you were on the street, and then you're not judging the people who are on the street. That's because when we go through hard times or challenging times of things, and then we have developed that compassion. I feel you have this, like what on your shirt, endless possibilities for the people who feel hopeless. And I'm just trying to understand, because I actually also, I'm always curious. Why do people do drugs? Why do people do drugs? So how did you get into drugs, first of all? And then how did you end up in selling drugs? Because you knew already, or I don't know if you knew at the time when you were selling, it's not doing you any good. So how did you get into drugs, and then why did you get into selling drugs?
Oh, I mean, the selling drugs was like that. That's easy to comprehend. Like there wasn't, from that view that I was seeing, like there wasn't no other route necessarily that I was gonna, make money and like finally be able to like buy things that I always wanted to buy, and just have things that I always wanted to have. And so, I went the job route real quick, and it just like, here's this kid, and like I can go work and make, you know, what, 200-300 bucks, a week. I was like tried the blockbuster and tried working at this thing and like getting the paycheck. And it's like I can turn around and I can do that in a couple hours, and freedom. Really, like it really boiled down to like values. And like one of my highest values, like for a long time was freedom. Like I like the freedom to just be able to be my own boss, make my own hours, do like what I wanted to do. And so the neighborhood that I lived in, there was like, we were the only one that had stairs to the house. And so for like a 2-block radius, and there was like 2 main gangs in the neighborhood were on each corner from our house. But our house was the only house on that whole block with stairs. So everyone was stairs. And I'm just as curious as you. And like my mind is just always, so I would just sit there all day long. And like I understand, like, programming, you see something long enough, and the way that I would see it, I would just see everyone just having a ball, and everyone's making money, and everyone's just outside, and no one's telling them what to do. There's no authority figure breathing down their neck. And I just started to really glamorize that lifestyle. I'm seeing people, nice gold chains, nice cars. They have all the women. Like it was just something that, and it just looked really good, and it wasn't that hard for me to like get into it, because all I had to do was like, I came outside and everyone's coming up to me as a kid, like, do you have any drugs? Do you have any drugs? Like, can I buy? I got money for you, And so, and I already had like a entrepreneur mindset. Like I would buy way before that, like, there was this lady that would give me $10 every year for my birthday, and it's like the only time I'd get $10 like for my birthday, which is like a lot of money, like we didn't have, when I say we didn't have any, like we ate, we had some clothes, but that was like about it. It wasn't the clothes we wanted, it wasn't the food I wanted to eat, it was just like very, very basic things. And like, mind you, my whole dreams of like becoming, a doctor, like doing like it had already been crushed like so early. So I was just like, what am I gonna do? I'm gonna just work at a restaurant. I'm like I didn't, that wasn't like, and I was like, I can't take care of my mom doing this. I can't get us out this situation, like this is really the only option I can see that would work for me. But even going back, like I saved those $10, and then every time my mom would get her check, she it would be like 150 bucks or whatever, and 50 cents. She would always give me the 50 cents. Like my brother didn't want it because he never really cared for money. But since I was young, like I always, like I just had I always wanted money. I always knew I was gonna like make money. And like I always wanted to get rich, like that was the whole thing. I was like, I gotta get my mom out this situation. I gotta get us a house. Like I gotta do something for us. And so she would give me like 50 cents, and like I started saving that, and I was waiting to get my $10, for my birthday. So the lady gave me my $10, like, Mom, can we go to the store? And I bought like a box of of candies, because I started doing the math. I'm like, well, kids in school are buying candies. I seen that this over here, I can buy this box of candy. I'll make a $5 profit from it, and I was like, I'm gonna buy a box of candy the second I save up enough money. Saved it, and then when I get the box of candies, I go out to the neighborhood to sell them. When I sell them all, I had like, I made my little profit. Mom was like, what are you gonna go spend your money on? And I was like, buy more candy. Like I'm not gonna spend my money. So it's like I went and I got more candy, and then made some money off of that. And then when I got more, she's like, all right, what are you going to buy now? And I was like, I'm going to buy a different box of candy. So I can have 2 kinds, and like And I was like thinking I was really gonna like buy her house from this. I was like, watch mom, like I'm gonna like we're gonna, you know, like we're gonna be able to you're gonna get whatever you want. And like then other kids saw that I was like selling candy. I was like, if you want, like you can sell them for me. I'll give you a nice little percentage from it. And now I had like other kids selling candy. So I always had this like mindset of like I was gonna, you know, like get it, you know, yeah, like any means that I could. And then it just so happened that like with drugs, and by the time I, you know, like I even, and mind you, like I also, like looking back, like I had teachers telling me that this is all you're ever gonna be. Like all you're ever gonna be is a drug dealer. All you're ever gonna do is run the street. And I was being told this since like very, very young, you know, like it was being told, this is what I saw, this is what I'm being told. And like I
Is that
adopted.
before you
Yeah,
became?
yeah, before. Even the school that like I ended up, like after getting kicked out of school and getting kicked out of school, they sent me to this like continuation school, which is just like a school that like the school district don't know what to do with these kids. Just here, just watch these kids, you know, throughout the day. And so while other kids had like graduates on the wall, like we had a shrine of like all the kids that were being murdered to gang violence. And this is all kids our age, 11, 12, 13, like now understanding the mind and the brain and how we get programmed. Like this is all we saw. Like we're coming in the morning and we'd all just sit there and we'd light candles for them. And so like they don't like, for whatever reason, I don't think it was intentional. They were just trying their best, but they don't understand. Like they're giving us our future vision. Like this is what we can expect. I never thought I was gonna live past 18, past 21. Like I didn't think that would ever be a possibility, you know. And so I wasn't even thinking like long term, you know. It was just like, how can, you know, we can do what we can do now, you know, and like, and so yeah, at one point I was just like, I went and like you know, I spent like $10, and then like I barely even got to my house, and someone already bought it off me, and I doubled up. I made 20 bucks. I'm like, whoa, I just made 100%. Like, forget candy, forget everything else. Like, this is how you get it done, you know? And so like, I just like, this is what I wanted to do. And I'm like saving money. I'm thinking like, I'm already planning, like, I'm gonna get us a house, I'm gonna do this. And, you know, my mom's not knowing, you know, like what's going on. And like I'm hiding a lot of these things, you know, behind her back. And like by the time she finds out, like she knew I wasn't going to school. She knew I was like, you know, she was studying. But by the time like she finds out that I'm now like you know, about to start selling drugs and hanging out, like she was not like having it. Like she would never take the dog. She's like, I don't care how poor we are, I don't care how, like I never raised you ever to do these things. Like this is not okay, you know? And then I would have the police came looking for, because now I'm not coming to school, but I'm hanging out in front of my, like that's all I had to do is just come out front. And so now, um, you know, I'm just like outside now. Like now it's just like I have made a decision, like this is what I'm gonna do, you know, like the decision was made, like I'm gonna sell drugs, I'm gonna be part of this gang, and I'm just gonna be here. And so my mom was like having a really rough time with that. The police came, you know, and then like I left, you know, I was like able to leave, you know, like what, 16 years old, and like I had to, you know, I had to leave and I couldn't come back for a while. But by that time it was like now, like I said, I was so hard-headed and I was like so just firm in my decision that like my mom, like nobody could like really change my mind. Like I was like, this is what I'm gonna do. And like, and I really wanted to be the best at it. Like I always want to strive and be like the best at what I do. But it kind of like lost its whole value because the point was for me to like get us out the situation. But now it didn't matter how much money I make. Like my mom was never gonna accept the money. Like never, no matter anything I tried, like it just wasn't gonna happen, you know. And so um I would then go to lose my best friend, you know, like my best friend grew up, like he got murdered, you know, and this is like the very first time that like I actually like lost someone to like to being murdered, you know. And so that like completely like it really hardened me like the worst, because I really love like my friends and I love people, and like I never lost somebody like that, and I didn't really know how to make sense of that. So this just numbed me to the world. I really didn't care about anything. Um I went on
Did
like
he
one time.
was he murdered, or did he murder
Yeah, he
someone
was
else
murdered. Oh, he was murdered. He
by
was
doing
murdered.
drugs?
No, he was his own, like it was at a party. It was like over an argument, some of his own friends, and like, you know, someone pulled out a gun, and it was yeah, they just shot him and killed him. He was 18 years old. And so that was like, And mind you, like we were best friends, but when I started like hanging out and running the streets, he had joined another gang. Like we weren't necessarily rivals, but he was like running with this whole other group. And I was kind of angry about that. And I was like, you should be here with me. And like, you're over there. And like, we would see each other, but we weren't like talking, and we're just, trying to be men and trying to like, um, doing our best, and like, but I still loved him. Like I never loved him any less, and like, I was just angry with him. And so he ended up having a kid. Like he had a kid, and I heard he had a kid. He had went to jail for like 6 months, and so when he comes home, he's like having a kid, and I was driving by and I seen him, and he had the stroller, and so like I seen him and I don't say nothing, and then like I instantly like I get to the corner, I'm like, this is my best friend. This is like ridiculous. Like at this point, and he has a kid, and I was like, I have to go say something to him. Like I remember so I turn, like I go around the block and I'm looking for him and I don't see him. And so I was like, okay, I'm gonna talk to him like the very next time I see him, I'm gonna call his mom or something, because like we have to talk. And then I remember I was like at home and I'm doing some dishes and I just get the phone. We grew up in church together. Like me and him grew up in church together. We were in the same neighborhood together. Like we spent like, we knew each other from like kids. And then like I get the call and they're like, oh, they killed him last night. And it was just like, I'm super emotional. And like, I just didn't know how to like handle something. And it was more so the fact that I didn't talk to him the whole time. And like, I took it upon myself. It's like that happened because of me and I could have saved him. And so like, and no one can change my mind. Everyone, oh, it's not your fault. Like it's 100% my fault, because he should have been with me and I would have never allowed that to happen. And like, why did I, allow myself to get mad? And so I would like, for years, I would like be at his grave and like blamed it on God. And it was just like, it just kept adding to to the confusion and to the pain and to the hurt. And so like, and then all these people just started like dying around me. And like, that kind of just became the norm, like, um, yeah, like I got shot a couple times and, I've been stabbed and beat and, police used to beat me up like all the time. So like, and this was even before, like when I was young, like in the neighborhood we would grow up, like the police would just beat you up, like you just come out, like before I was even selling drugs and hanging out, like they were just like, super violent, like a lot of police brutality. And I never looked at it like police brutality. I never looked at it like, I just figured like, that's their job, and that's normal. And this is what happens. Like a lot of things that weren't normal, I just made it my normal, and like at some point it just becomes life. And it ain't till you look back and I'm just like, oh my God, like none of that was normal. Never raised to be this way. Like, cause like I said, I did try to make sense of things. Like, how does one end up, like there was one time when I was hanging out, I was selling drugs, there was this girl and she was like the love of my life. It was my best friend's sister. She's like the love of my life. She was older and she had a son. And like, I was like trying to be his dad. Like, mind you, I'm just like, not even, I thought I could be a dad, and I'm just like, I can do this. And then she ends up getting pregnant. So I'm like, oh, I'm going to have a kid. And I was really excited about that. Like, I remember being like so excited about that I had changed my whole mind on everything. I was like, I'm no longer going to sell drugs. I'm no longer going to be part of this gang. Like, I'm going to go get a job. Like, I'm going to go, be a father to this kid. And like I found my purpose, I was like, ooh, I found something that I could live for, And so, and I was excited about it. Like, we're talking about it. We're like talking about having a baby and like, everything was like, it was good. This was the house I'm going to go live at after the police, came and I had to leave my house. They like lived around the corner from me. And so I'm just like so happy and excited. And then like one day she just like out of nowhere, she's like, oh, we're not having this kid, And I'm like, what do you mean we're not having the kid? And she's like, yeah, I think I'm gonna have an abortion. And I was like, no, you're not, like we've already been like every day, like everything's good and we're like happy, everything's good. And I already told everybody, like I went and told people in the neighborhood, I was like, I'm no longer gonna be part. I just want to let you guys know, like I'm out. Like, I want no parts of this. Like I'm gonna be a dad and I'm gonna go, try to go get a job in construction or do something. Like, I'm gonna like figure this out. And people were just like, okay, whatever. And then she tells me that, and she's like, yeah, I'm gonna have an abortion. I was like, no. And I remember like just begging her not to. And I was like, well, I'll take care of the baby, just have it. And she was just like, well, I already did it, like I already did it. And I don't want to be with you no more either. And I was like, what? And so that was like that just like I was like went from up here to just like again like another like now I see it like all these like childhood experiences like just recycling themselves, having high hopes for something, having a purpose, and it just being taken away from me. And then she's like, and I'm like, why? She's like, because of you, like you're just gonna die anyways, and there's like no point, like she kind of like just, and I really took like, well, like now like someone won't even have a kid with me, like that's how much of like I don't matter and like all these things. And then I was like, I just decided, okay, this is all I'm gonna do for the rest of my life. Like my mind was just like at that point, like I'm just gonna be in the streets. I remember I went and got some alcohol and like because I wasn't even like a drinker, and like the pain was so much that like I had to like force myself to drink this alcohol. And then that would like start my whole like drinking alcohol all the time, like because I was just so like angry. Like that one I didn't know how to like really, take. And then so now I'm more angry with my friend. I'm not like um, like all these things, I just became like very just like cold and I didn't care. And I was like outside all the time. And I was just like, I'm not trying no more, like all this stuff. And so a couple some time passed by, and then that's when my friend dies, like I would actually get back with her. Like we ended up getting back together probably like a year and a half after, and like we're together or whatever. And then we ended up living together, but like at this point it was like my mind was already set, like I'm gonna be out, this is what I'm doing. And so when my friend dies, like it was just too much for me, it was just like too much. I leave the house, I'm angry, I want to go like get revenge. I'm like, I can't think straight. I'm just like, I'm losing my mind. And then like that night she calls me and she's like, I don't know what you're gonna do. Like I know like you're thinking of doing something stupid, but I just want to let you know that I'm pregnant, And I was like, I don't care. Like I don't care, like I'm not going through this again, And she's like, well, I just want to let you know that this time I'm keeping it. And like whatever you're gonna do, I just want to let you know, So I sat down that day and like, I really was gonna go do something like really stupid. And I was just like I thought about it. I was like, okay, I'm not gonna do that, But yeah, so she would go on to like have my daughter, but at this point, like I was just so like I just didn't care, But my daughter was like my absolute world, and like we were like really close. And she's just like she's just so smart and so cool and like a little mini me. And like I would just like spend all my time with her, but I wasn't like making the changes that I should have. I wasn't like it wasn't like, oh, this time I'm gonna leave the streets and I'm gonna actually be a dad. Like I was with her, all the time. I actually like got shot when I was with her, and like I'm taking care of her. Not like when I was with her, but when I had her, And then like someone almost like literally almost took my life by like this much, And that was a straight miracle of God, like um was able to escape that. And then even a couple months later, it was again, like a complete miracle. Like I had people standing over me, like shooting me, and just a miracle that I was like even survived both those situations. But I was like so deep in it at that point that there was just like I felt like there was no like turning back, But I was like I had made her my world, kind of like, but I wasn't changing per se. Like at that point, it was just like I thought I couldn't. Like at that point, I had this idea where it's just like I'm in too deep. There's really nothing I can do, And like yeah, I really used to think like it's gonna be really sad because I like always felt like my daughter was gonna go to my funeral eventually, And like that had became a norm because it's like I'm going through so many funerals, like so many people were just like all these things are happening. And then like I ended up like having falling out with her mom, and like I had did some things, I cheated on her, hurt her, and but I really just didn't care anymore, And so when we break up and I leave the house, like I remember my daughter just like screaming, just like really going through it. And like that honestly was like the final straw, like once I really lost like the whole family house. And it was really because of me, like it was like all on me. So like I even like, took it more upon myself. And I knew I could have just did something. I could have changed. I could have like, manned up or anything, but I was just too in it. And like the pain was just way too great at that point. And I actually got addicted to pills. One of the first time I got shot, like the doctors had gave me some oxycontins, and it's like the first time I didn't even know you could get addicted to pills. And so like they had, gave me all these pills, and like it would help with the pain, but it would also like completely numb me, like I wouldn't feel when I had those. But I still have my daughter. Excuse me. I still have my daughter. So like eventually I stopped taking the pills. Like one day I didn't have pain and I wanted to take it. And I was like, oh, I threw it away. Like I always had that mindset, like, I'm not gonna take something. Like, and the doctor was just like, I remember I was like going, see, I didn't know what was happening, but I was withdrawing. Like I didn't know. And then go back to the doctors. They're like, what's happening? We don't know what's happening. I finally told them, like, well, I stopped taking the pills. They're like, you can't just stop taking these pills. I'm like, what do you mean? Like, what did you guys give me? And they're like, he's like, you have to like wean yourself off this. Like, you're addicted to these pills. You can't. I'm like, why would you guys give me something that would get me addicted? Like I didn't understand it. And then he tried to give me more pills. He's like, here, take these, you'll be okay. I remember taking one that day and like I got okay. And I was like, I'm not gonna be addicted to pills. I threw them away again. So like I never, like no matter what I was going through, like I didn't, like I wasn't gonna do that. But when like after, leaving my daughter's house and like just the pain of not being with her no more, like I think like that was like worse than like anyone that died, being molested, like any, like nothing was like on top of, like nothing like compared to the pain of like what I was putting her through and not being with her. Like that was just more than I could like actually handle. And I didn't know how to tell anybody that I could handle it, and like I'm still selling drugs, like that's what I'm doing. And so I went and I got pills because I remembered, I was like, well, I remember those pills. So I started like taking pills behind people's back. And like that's the only time like I wouldn't feel anything. And that was the only way that I could actually deal with like this like immense pain. But like before I knew it, like it just took a life of its own. And like those things just took a hold of me. And like at one point it's just like I couldn't stop. And I didn't care anymore. And like I started losing everything slowly, but I didn't even care if I was losing it, like I lost my place, started losing like anything I had. It's everything. I just lost it. And like no one could reach out to me, because I was just at that point, like I didn't care anymore about anything. Like I started like not showing up to like birthdays, and like slowly like my relationship was just non-existent with my daughter. And I was like fully in the streets, and just like on drugs. Like before I even, it's like you just wake up one day and like I lost everything. I'm homeless. I'm in the streets now. I don't have anything, and that would just start this like crazy downward spiral for a couple of years, and it's just like really I didn't care anymore. I didn't care about anything. And that was the best way I know how to cope.
When you were selling drugs, were you taking drugs as well?
No, not until after like the relationship with my daughter was severed. And like
So
yeah,
you were
like
selling just to make money?
yeah. I was always selling. I was doing really good, like selling drugs, like I just kept selling. I didn't get a job. I was like going to school. I was like, this is what I'm doing, and I was like,
So you
yeah.
didn't even take, because I thought a lot of people, because they take drugs and then they end up selling. So you actually try to make money out of it, and you didn't even take them yourself.
No. I wasn't taking them. I was like just, making a lot of money selling drugs, doing that. But it was that relationship with just my daughter. Like I would see her every now and then, like I would still see her, I'll still be with her, and like that was okay. But I didn't know how to explain. She's like, Daddy, are you ever coming home? And like I would go home and it was just like it was just too much, But there was like at one point we just had like a really big falling out, and it was just like I'm not gonna be able to see her no more. And like, I was like I started taking them around that time, like right before, but because I wasn't with her for like, let's say I wasn't in the house for a year, but I would still like see her. But just the relationship just kept, like I started seeing her less, and I can see the pain I was putting her through. And like I didn't know how to like handle, because I was just so empathetic, and it's like I can deal with like hurting other people. But like knowing I was hurting my daughter, like I didn't know how to like handle that kind of pain. And I do remember like these pills would like, I remember like it would help with my pain when I got shot, but I remember I also wouldn't feel a lot of other things that I was dealing with, you know, other pain. Like I clearly remember that. 'Cause I remember not feeling the pain from my gunshot wounds, but I had took the pill because I was like, man, this is taking other pain away. And I didn't like that. So that's when I threw the pills away. But I remember being at home one day and I was just like, I need to get some of those pills again, like, you know? And I just took one and it's like, I just take one and I was like able to just cope and like still live. But then I was just taking more and then upping the dose and then upping the dose. And at one point, like it had me fully. And then like I just remember like I just like stopped seeing my daughter completely. Like we had a thing and it's just like I just wasn't seeing her at all. And then after that, it was just like if I don't have her, you know, I just didn't really like care anymore. And so I was just more just taking like it just got out of control. And so yeah, I ended up on drugs like for a long time.
How was life like as a drug dealer? What kind of life can you?
Man, it's ups, downs. Like I said, like for me, I enjoyed it because I was really good at it. So it's like you're a full-time, you're a marketer, you're a salesman, you're a CEO, you're a you know, like I love numbers, I love making money, I love like being good at things. And then also it's like a game of like cat and mouse because you know, it's just like you're just hoping to not get caught, you know. And so like the thrill of just like always getting away and like being able to just travel anywhere and like do what I want. A lot of people like have bad things to say about it. I actually enjoyed it, you know. And the thing was like it was something I was good at. And since I'm such a people's person, like it just was constantly talking to people, you know. It's like just constantly talking to like people, you know, because it wasn't just like drug addicts, you know. It was just like, you know, other people that sold drugs. And it was just like, it was like a full-fledged business, you know, and it was just me running it. And so like, it was something that I was like successful at and I was good at. And like, it kind of did tick off a lot of my strengths, right? I was able to you know, utilize them in his lifestyle. But yeah, like I never really felt like I was doing wrong, you know, like I never
So
necessarily.
you think you were just it's just a transaction.
Yeah, just a transaction. And like I said, like I would, even the people like that were on drugs, you know, like when I was in the street, like I was always like I was like their therapist, you know, and like I would like we would talk and it was like real people that, you know, they were gonna just do it regardless. It wasn't like I'm finding someone that's not on drugs and here I'm gonna give you this, you know. It was like people that were already on drugs and they would, you know, get referred to me and like and they loved me, you know, and I would have these like relationships with like really good, real successful people, you know, with houses and millionaires and people with money and like um way more successful than me, you know, like lawyers, doctors, real estate developers, like, you know, all kind of people, you know,
Okay, so
like all
not just the people in your neighborhood who are
no,
under
that's how it
under.
started. It was really low level in my neighborhood, but as you know, as I got bigger, then like you know, the clientele changes and the environment. Then I started stop dealing with like the dirty drugs, and it was more like just cocaine. And this was like all people with money and more people, you know, like it was my way into like circles that I probably wouldn't have been able to get into, you know, like if it wasn't for that. Like I've met like so many people, and because I was so personable and like, you know, like you wouldn't think, you know, like, you know, I had my upbringing like from my mom and from everything like that. Everyone always like, you're kind of different from like other people. It wasn't like I was this violent guy and like, you know, it was like something I was good at. Like I don't like it was yeah, I never like felt terrible but I was doing. Like what I felt terrible was you know just like the relationship with my daughter being severed, like my mom not being like proud of me, you know, like not like the things that really mattered to me. It was like I always said this, like I was always chasing this like climbing up this ladder of success, right? And it was like, oh, when I get to here, like I thought this is what I wanted. And so it kept me busy, like 24 hours a day, like always doing to get to this like level. And then like when you get to the top of the ladder, it's like I realized it was on the wrong wall. And so when I got up there, it was just like such an empty feeling. Cause I'm like the people that actually mattered, the things that actually mattered to me, like I've lost. chasing this thing that I thought mattered to me, you know? So there was even a feeling of like even more emptiness, you know, when I got up there. And it's just like my relationship with God was like non-existent. Relationship with my mom was like not there. Relationship with my daughter's mom, with you know, with her son, like all these things, but you're such in this like, you know, they call it the fast lane because you're really in the fast lane. You're not seeing things that are happening, right? And so it's probably also a way to distract myself of like all this like trauma from a child and like all these experiences that I was having. But I remember when I got there, when I thought like what I wanted, I got there and I was like, this is not even what I wanted, but I didn't know it wasn't what I wanted. And I didn't realize, like, I didn't know about values. I didn't know that like it was a conflict of values, even no matter how successful I was. And people could look on like, yo, what are you depressed about? And I'm like, this just isn't me, you know, but I was just trying to be good at something, right? And so that was even worse too, like getting there and like being completely empty. And then now the one thing that did matter, like, you know, my daughter and like and family and things like that, when that wasn't there, it's just like empty. Like I'm in this house by myself, you know, and like
So you had a lot of money and you had the house and you had all the things.
Yeah.
And then so what happened and why did you stop?
I just started taking the drugs. Like I started taking the pills. I stopped answering my calls. I stopped like chasing this thing and like kind of just, you know, self-sabotaging, I guess, trying to ruin it all, you know, because like unconsciously, I was just trying to sabotage everything and trying to deal with this feeling of emptiness and pain and all these things. And so I just got lost in the drugs, you know, and so I just became this like person that wasn't like you didn't want to be around, you know, you didn't want to be around me because I was so angry. I was like, I just didn't know how to act. Like I'm punching holes in my wall. Like I'm not even like trying to just get rid of things that I have and like not caring for anything and not really not caring for myself. And it's just like, you know, it wasn't just overnight, you know, but because I had the money, like that was the worst thing, was to be an addict and actually have the money to like fund any amount of like, you know, drug habits that, you know, most people would have for sure couldn't afford, you know, to like, but it was just like, as long as it took, you know, to where I finally ended up losing my place, losing the cars, losing like everything, like losing whatever relationships I did have left, you know, and just like not even being able to look in the mirror or recognize like who I was, like ended up homeless, ended up in the streets, you know, and like trying to just fend for a life in the streets, you know, and just like at that point, like, you know, I'm going to jail, but this time I'm like I never went to jail for selling drugs, jails for like shoplifting and for like stealing things or like, you know, like just being in the streets. And so, and people were just like, hey, I think that the guy that was like so successful and so this, like, you know, like look at him now, he's like walking around the streets and just like, you know, completely lost. And like it felt like it just happened overnight, but I mean, it wasn't. It was like it was a trajectory, and it just like slowly just sabotages it all. But I would end up like I couldn't afford the pills no more, so I started doing like heroin, and now I'm like shooting up because I need to get more high, you know, more high for a cheaper way. Like, and like I had this like just because I would take so much, it's like I needed, you know, so much to just even stay normal. And like so I started shooting up drugs, and I was just like living in these like weekly hotels that were just like these just in a really crazy like the things I would see, you know, like there'd be people that just fall overdose and die right in front of me, just like normal, you know, like the person you're just with, like boom, you know, I mean, I didn't know I'm growing up with them really, but you know, we're in the streets together and just like it just became normal, you know, and like rat infested places and you're just in there, like, and like in the back of my mind, like there was always this like there was always like a sober person. I don't know if it was God, I don't know if like what it was, but like there's always something that around me I'm like, I am noticing like I can't believe that I'm here, but I'm also like so in it and so just programmed and so like just there now. But I mean, even anyone that's around me, like you know, I posted that story. There's people that were actually with me and they're reaching out to me and they're like, God, I remember you always talked about these things. You always said how you were going to help people. You always said you always said you wanted to have a nonprofit. You always said you were going to do these things. You always said you were going to like sober up. Like, I didn't know you were actually going to do it. And I was like, I don't even remember having those conversations. They're like, yeah, you would like get high and like fall asleep listening to Les Brown and like Tony Robbins, and like you'd be the only guy like sleeping on the train, but I'm reading Warren Buffett's autobiography. And like, so there was like little things that were like, you know, looking back now that I do see, because there's people like, yo, what happened? Like, how did you get out? And I was like, I kind of always knew I would, you know. I think it was just like part of the journey, you know, and kind of like trying to just kill off this person that I just like couldn't see in the mirror anymore. And like couldn't, like, you know, I was just so ashamed, like not even about doing the drugs, but now I'm just having this conversation, like all those things I had did that I, you know, like embarrassing my mom in our neighborhood, and like what I did to my daughter, all these, like I was trying to like kill off this person that did all those things, you know. And I think that's what I was really trying to get rid of, you know. And like
How did you make the shift? So what happened?
man, there was like many like rock bottoms, like there's many moments that I called out to God, and I was like, God, like I can just tell you, there's like some times, like there was times where I like pretty much overdosed, you know. And like I don't know how I didn't die, like because there was no one that came to get me out of it. It was pure prayer and willpower. Like I'm like falling over dying one time in this hotel room, and I was just like, as I'm falling to die, I had this thought like, I'm not gonna die in this hotel. Like I'm not. Like so many people had died. Like every week there's someone ODing and we're bringing them out in the hotel. It's just a normal thing. It's even worse now, you know. But I was like, there's just no way. I remember having that thought, like I'm falling over. I'm like, you're not gonna die here. And I just like with any little might that I had, like I picked myself up and I'm like full-fledged, like coming down these stairs. I was like, you're gonna die on the street, you know, like at least die outside where someone can find you, but don't let them come in this hotel. And like I just didn't, by myself, you know, like I would have died alone in that room, and who knows when they would have found me. And so, and it's funny because the friend that I'm about to go like buried next week, like that's how they found him. No one knew where he was. They went to a room and they found him last week in one of those hotel rooms. And like I always thought, like, wow, that really could have like that was me, you know. But I remember I pulled myself out of there, and I'm also praying like, God, please don't let me die here. And like I get outside, and when I get outside, I can't see anything. Like I walk like to the corner, I'm like, people are looking at me crazy. I'm just like any little mite, and then it's like an exorcism. I just threw up, like it just all came out, like everything on the corner, and like I don't know how it happened, but it just like everything came out, and I'm just like sitting there, and I'm like, wow. But I know for a fact, like like it's weird because I know we're like really losing, like dying, like I know what it felt like, and like something, you know, I don't know how to explain it, right? But everything just came out on its own. Like more people have to get Narcan. It's like a drug that they give you so that you could like get rid of all the drugs in your body, but it just happened, you know. And so I didn't die then. Like I wish I could say that was the moment, you know, but it wasn't. You know, there was like more after that. There was like another moment where they would give people, they call it a hot shot, where they basically try to poison your shot, right? So they'll give, you know, they'll sell somebody some poison. That's how they would like get rid of people. Like someone had a problem with someone, they'd give them, you know, some poison, and like people were dying like that. And like I remember when this guy gave it to me, for it was over a little dispute or whatever. He's like, here, I got some for you, gives it to me, you know, and that was like meant to kill me. And like when I did that, I was in the bathroom and I instantly feel every organ in my body just shut down instantly. Like I never, like to the point where I just like I laid out, but there was still that little voice, like something inside of me. Like I always say there was like because it was like clear, and I like I'm just like, you're not gonna die in this bathroom, you know. And like I got myself up out of there, and like I got outside and like sat myself on a corner, and like don't even know how that didn't like take me out, to the point where the person saw me and they found out. They were like shocked, like, you know, because that was like intended to kill me. And like I wish I could say that was my rock bottom, and it was still a long time after that, you know. There was a time where I did like pass out and die in a bathroom in a restaurant, you know, because I was in the streets and I find bathrooms in there. Found they're banging on the door. No one's like, however, I'm out. The paramedics come in, they like resuscitate me, bring me back. And when I get up, I see them and I just break away from them and just run out, you know. And they're like, wait, like we're trying to save. And I just get away. And I'm like, that didn't stop, you know. And so I just kept like spiraling. And so, but there was like one point where I was just like I can't live like this anymore, right? I mean, there was always that thought, but for whatever reason, like this time was like a little like different. And I was at a friend's house, and the friend had they had an empty room in their house. Someone had just moved out. And I remember like clearly like how my mom said, like, you can always pray. As I was a kid, she was like, sorry, my battery. Okay. So she said, you can always pray. Like you always have like God that you can go to, like no matter what. And so and other times like I would call it prayer, but it was never really prayer. It was more like I'm like yelling to God, like, save me, you know, like come do the work for me, you know, like make the decision for me, but not actually, you know, like I did have those moments where I almost died. Like I'll pray, but I'll do the same thing over again, you know. But this time, I'm like taking this thing, it's called methadone, where it's actually like the government gives it to people, and it's like a way to just so you don't have to you know, like it kills the cravings or whatever, but it's a lot stronger, like a lot stronger. And but it's like the hospital gives it to you, and it's like a clinic, and you go every single day and they dose you. But the idea behind it is that they give you this, as soon as you like level out, then they'll lower your dose little by little by little by little by little until you're no longer on it. Right. But the thing about these clinics is that like if you tell them you want a higher dose, they'll give you a higher dose, you know, and most of us were just using it as a cheap alternative, right? To not, the only thing is like you're not getting the drug how you want it, but it's the same effect. It's like a synthetic form of like heroin, which is like way worse. It's like it's called, yeah, it's methadone. It's these clinics. And so I was going to methadone clinic, like I had my dose so high up. And the only reason I would go there is because like when I knew I was going to jail, when there'd be a warrant for me, like they'll give you this dose in jail. And so I would be in jail, and like one time I went, if like you miss the clinic 3 times, they take you off, you know? So everyone tries to like at least not miss 3 days. For the off chance, if you go to jail, you'll get your drugs in jail, right? And so one time I missed the 3 days, I go to jail, I'm like, I need my dose. They're like, no. And I'm like dying. It feels like literal death. Like when you're withdrawing, like it really feels like there's no sleep, anxiety, cold sweats, bones aching. Like it's just like unbelievable. Some people can sleep through it, right? So there's some people that can sleep through it, maybe not too many hours, but I couldn't sleep. I didn't sleep for like the 30 days I was there. And it was just like, it was just so bad, like horrendous, right? And so 'cause this is actually harder to get off of the heroin. Heroin would be like 3 days to a week, but methadone is like, it's like a month to 6 month process if you just were to go cold turkey, right? And so to me, I was like, that's just not possible. Like I wasn't strong enough to like to go that long like without taking it. And then plus my dose was so high. Um, but I remember that. Like I was like, I can't do it. But this one day I was just like, I can't keep going like this. Like this is just like I was just tired of it. And just I didn't know what to do, right? Slowly I'm trying to like change things. I got a job. I'm working at the mall, like a security guard, like just standing by you know by a doorway. And so like I'm clean enough to where like I can go to work, you know, and I'm going to the clinic, and I'm like I'm making sure, you know, and like I try to get a job, and I'm just like what do I do? What do I do? Like I can't live like this anymore. And I remember praying. Like I remember like going in a room. I remember my mom saying like you can really like pray, like you don't understand, like you have access to God, right? And like if you can't do it, the thing I was always trying to do it either on my own or trying to have them do it for me. I couldn't do it on my own. And and like no one was just gonna come save me and do it for me. But the prayer was different this time. I got on my knees, and it was more like a stubborn one too. And I was just like, God, I'm not getting up from here until you answer this prayer. Like you are going to help me do this. Like I can't do it by myself. I promise you, like if you get me off of this, like I'll never do it again. Like I'll do my part. Like promise to never in my life do it, but nothing's helping. I can't do it. And like um I wasn't gonna get up until it was answered, you know? And like I kind of knew the moment when it was answered. I don't know how to say it. It was just like, okay. And I got up and I just like let it go. Right. I was just like, whatever. And what I also happened like the day before, I'm still like, I don't remember if it was the day before or if it was after, but I had listened to The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. And I was on, I'm standing by the door, and it was the audio version on YouTube. And I'm hearing this book, and like it shifted. I listened 8 hours all the way through, like from the beginning all the way to the end. And I was like, what is this? Like, he's explaining the pain body, he's explaining like identity and identifying with the ego, and like you're not your thoughts, and like all these like concepts and ideas that like I was like foreign to at that time. And I'm really listening. I'm like, what is this guy talking about? Like this is like, like this is real. And the next night, there's another guy named Anthony DeMeo. And so I listened to him. It's an 8-hour lecture. I listened to it like all the way through, like all night. He was explaining like, he was a Jesuit priest. And so he was explaining concepts and those other things that like I didn't really like, I hadn't like known at that time, but it really was like a big shift. And then I was like, you know what, I'm gonna pray to God. Like I'm gonna really pray to God. So I made that prayer. It was like the day before my birthday. And I was just like, God, like I can't, I felt like he answered the prayer. I was like, all right, I just let it go. The next day was my birthday. I don't go to the clinic, right? And I couldn't go like one day without going to the clinic because, within 24 hours, the withdrawals are going to get bad. If it's don't, then like I'm back to the streets. I got to go back to the neighborhood I was just at to go find some pills or, something like. And so, but I didn't go, and I wasn't feeling like the withdrawals. And I was like, okay, I know I'm on a really high dose. So it's probably, tomorrow I'll feel it for sure. It's my birthday. I'm not gonna do no drugs. I'm just gonna just chill. This was December 10th, 2016, and so the day that I prayed was December 9th, and then December 9th was like it's a big week for me because my best friend that died, his birthday was December 5th, so we would celebrate our week. So every week was like really bad. My other best friend, like who I didn't talk about, but he's like really another like really best friend who never did he wasn't in no gangs, had every opportunity to live the life I lived, because in his house it was gangs, it was drug use, same neighborhood, same situation, probably even poorer than me, no guidance, no love, no role model, like nothing, and he had a kid. And so, but he got a job. Like he went and he got a job. And so I when he had the kid, he called me because like his family didn't want him to have the kid because he was the only one that worked. It was like he was some money, and they thought like if he has this kid, he's gonna like. And I remember he called me like stressed out. Chris didn't want me to have this kid, and like at this time I had my daughter. And I'm like, you're gonna have this kid. His name was Robert. I was like, you're gonna have this kid, and like I'm gonna help you no matter what. Like you're gonna make this happen. Like you're the only one, that's like really doing good. Like we all depending on you. Like I really wanted to see him like do God. So whatever it is, you got me, And so every day after, like when he would get off work, I would always go over there and I would like, I would just hang out with him. Like any money I had, I would help him out, we like to smoke weed. And so like, I would always make sure he paid for it. And he was just like learning this trade. And he was just like, he really had the issue being able to control his emotions, but like, he knew the situation, like it wasn't like surprising. And so he had like anger issues, but he was like all about like just doing better. He was going to get out of the situation. He was going to get out. There was like no doubt about it. He was his nephews and nieces, like he cared for them because there was no one in the house that was going to care for them. He's the only one that would bring them out the house, take them around. Like just the best kid you could ever think, like ever. Into sports, but they didn't have the money to keep it like going. So he would like have his nephew play sport, like everything you can think of, just like an all-out good kid. And one day he's outside. His birthday was on the 8th. So all three of us on the 5th, on the 8th, on the 10th, this is like our week, we like, little neighborhood kids will get camp, whatever, but we'd all just have our birthdays celebrate together. So he's outside, and then this like girl, this neighbor across the street is yelling at his as nephews, like playing, they're playing, football outside in the sidewalk, and she's just yelling, "You guys are making noise." And like he comes out angry, he's been arguing in the house. He comes out and he's yelling at her, like, "Don't talk to my nephews like that," like yelling from downstairs. The boyfriend she had living in the house, he comes running out, and before he even like sets foot on the ground, he like shot him like 4 times. Like he's like just came out to just end his life. And so, and he shoots him right there, and he's like on the sidewalk, just dying on the street that we all grew up on, that we all played at. And this was like on the 9th of December, day after his birthday. So, like that really, like I really didn't really care about much after that, because it was just like it didn't make sense. I'm like, the one kid, he didn't choose this life. Like it should have been me, and like why this? I couldn't understand it. I never understood it. He's having this kid right now. Like I never understood that. I was so angry at that. So for all those years, for that week, the 5th, is my friend's birthday, the 8th was his, the 9th was a week. Like I had been so tired by the time my birthday came around. Like I was just like out of it, So fast forward, to the time when I had made that prayer, like it was a rough week, and I remember just making that prayer, and like I was like, I can't live like this. Like I'm not gonna have another birthday where I'm just gonna be living. Like I just wanted done with this, And so I made that prayer on the 9th, and then the 10th, like I don't go to the clinic, and so, but I wasn't feeling like any withdrawals or anything. I'm like, okay, maybe there's still some left over from the next day. The very next day, like my friend knows if you don't go to the clinic, they're gonna cut you off. Like you have to go, and there's a cutoff time where you have to go. And so my friend would give me a ride, and he would take me. But he was always last minute with it, And so they close at 2. It's like 1:45, and I'm just sitting there. I'm not telling nobody that I made this prayer. I'm just like, I don't know what's going on, because I'm kind of not like feeling like I need to go. And he looks at the time. He's like, "Oh my God, we got to go to the clinic." And he's like, we run outside, and like I'm following him outside to the car, and he runs to the car. He's like, "Come on, let's go." When he gets to the car, like I clearly heard a voice like in my, like right here, like I could even feel the breath, like it would whisper into my ear, and it's just like, "You don't have to go." I'm like, "What? Like who said that?" Right? And I'm like, and I just stop in the middle of the street. He's looking, and he thinks like that it's because of the time. He's like, "I'm sorry, but let's go." And I'm just like, nah, it's cool. And he's like, he knew like if it's gonna get bad for me, and I'm just like, should I listen to this voice? Should I go? Should I not go? Like, what do I do? This is like on the 11th now, and I'm just like, I just like listened, and I'm just like, I'm not gonna go, and I'm just gonna just see what happens, But I don't tell nobody what's going on. But I'm like, I'm not going. And he's like, "What? Nah." And I was like, I have some pills. It's okay. Like, I'm not going, right? So he's like, "Are you sure?" I'm like, "I'm not going if I don't go." And I go into a room, and I'm just sitting there, and I'm just like, I don't know what's going on, And the one thing is like, I couldn't sleep. Like, it's like without these things, like I couldn't sleep. I'd be up tormented all night. And like, I was like, if I can sleep tonight, like this is going to be really weird, And I slept that night. And then when I wake up the next morning, like super early, I'm hearing the birds like just so loud in my ear. I'm like, why are the birds not shutting up? Like I can hear them, just all the birds outside singing, everything, like just so loud. And I'm like, why are these birds so loud? And I like come outside. I'm like, how did I sleep through the night? Like, why am I not feeling like, like I'm dying, And I'm just like, I go outside and like everything's like super green, and like I'm looking around, like nothing looks the same. I'm like, whoa, like what's going on here? Like beyond present, But mind you, like the whole, like maybe a couple weeks leading up to that, I had read The Power Is Now. I've already like getting like really present. There's other things that are happening, but I'm just like, what is going on right now, And I was like, this is really weird. So I go in the car and I'm doing like this meditation, and I would just like sit there, because even though like I didn't have the withdrawal or everything, like I like from so much to the body, like I don't know how to explain it. There was like an effect, but it wasn't like I wasn't going through withdrawals, and I didn't know how to explain it, And I still had these like thoughts that I had been like dealing with, and but I'm still just shocked that everything looks so different. So I'm trying to just meditate and calm my mind and learning how to just regulate myself and like watching my thoughts. And wasn't be easy because I was like monkey mind, I'm just like, everything's like running. I'm just like calming myself. And I'm just like, I just shocked. So I leave. I just go walking everywhere. And like, I'm looking at everything. I remember I started taking pictures of things and I was just like, everything looks so different. And then, that night I go to sleep. Same next morning, I wake up, birds loud again. I'm like, what is going? And I realized, like, dude, the birds have always been singing. I just been so numb to everything, and everything looked like just like beautiful. Like I was just like in the state of bliss, right? I couldn't even like describe it. And I'm just taking pictures of everything. Like that just had became my hobby now, and like things had just like kind of shifted at that moment. But the fact that I didn't have the withdrawal was just like so weird. I didn't know how to share this with anybody. And I didn't care to either. I was like, wow, like there's a literal actual miracle that's going on right now,
So that just
And
happened because of your prayer, did you think?
someone
No
told
idea.
me like, I wanted to like, I questioned it a lot of times, but what I was is just like, I was free. And I was like, I really don't even care how,
Yeah, that's
right?
right.
So like, but there was still other things that I needed to work on, right? So there was like, but as far from the drugs, like I knew I had gotten a second chance. And I knew that if I ever even touched it again, like I just knew it wasn't gonna be, like I remember the promise I made. I remember I said, you get me out there, I'll do my part, right? Because it wasn't still around me. There was still people, doing things that like, but the desire wasn't even there. Like how people say, oh, you get cravings. Like, so my view on addiction is so different from people that I can't even share it with people, right? And I wish my experience could be the same for other people, but when people say, oh, you get triggers and you get this, and I'm just like, no, you don't, like, and people are just like, well, what changed for you? And I was like, it was like, I decided, it's like a real decision. Like, I reached out to God, like something shifted in me, but I had done it many other times, but the miracle that like I couldn't explain was the withdrawals. The withdrawals were gone, and that couldn't be explained. The people at the clinic were like, that it didn't happen. Like, that's not true. You're on something, you're doing something, like, why are you not coming back? I had this counselor that I would like talk to, at the clinic, and he's just like, it's impossible. I know you're back on. I'm like, no, I'm not going back. Like you're not gonna see me no more. And watch what's gonna happen to you. Okay, bye.
When was that?
Huh?
When did that happen?
Oh, he like reached out to me like that week, he
Oh,
like
no.
called.
When did the miracle happen?
Oh, this was December 10th, 2016.
2016. So you haven't touched the drugs since?
No.
Oh, wow. Okay,
Yeah.
that is a miracle.
Or even had a desire to and been around them. Like, it's not like, I can't say like my complete lifestyle changed as far as like the circles I was in, the people I was talking to. Like, there was still a lot of my old self that was, present, a lot of it. But I
How
was in, like,
you said you had thoughts, they're still going. What kind of thoughts were still in your head?
everyone that died, all the, the things of being molested, like all the decisions I made, all the like trauma, everything that would replay for years, was still present. Not being able to control my anger, not like I would get like real like emotional. I didn't really know how to. But as far as like the withdrawals were gone and the desire to want to do it was gone, which is out the window. But I still had all these things to like deal with, So that's when I got into like, I remember like I started reading books. I felt like I was making up for lost time. Like I got this book on NLP, and I just started like devouring it, and like I started listening to Earl Nightingale and like all these audios. Like I really started like getting into the mind. I mean, I was already getting into it before while I was on it, like during those, those weeks, but like I really just went heavy into like, I really want to understand my mind. I really want to understand myself. I really, like, I just like had all this free time on my hands to where it's just like, I wanted to learn and I wanted to like make sense of what was going on. And so slowly I started like applying little other things, and then it was helping with, you know, with my emotions. It was helping with like how I looked at trauma, how I dealt with it, how like about being present. I realized like a lot of time I was spending in my mind either some like future scenario that was never going to happen. I was just projecting and thinking was that was just causing so much anxiety, or like all this time in the past and looking at it in this like this way that would just make me feel crappy, you know, regardless of, but I was happy that I was off drugs. I was like, and I was even kind of like not so humble, you know. I was just like, yeah, I'm out and look at you guys, and yeah, I wish you wish you were like me, you know, like this power. Like I thought I was all high and mighty, and like all you got to do is just stop, and you know, like, and you know, I was like I was free for a while, but there was still sorry, let me charge it. There was still a lot of growing that had to take place, you know. There was still a lot of growing, a lot of learning, and I was still being hard-headed because at that point when I told my mom, you know, it wasn't like I was out there telling people, oh, I prayed and God saved me, and like it was more so like I did this, you know. And my mom was like, oh, go to church. And I wasn't going to church. I'm like, no, I'm not going to church. Like, I'm not learning about the mind right now. I'm gonna learn this. I don't need to go to church. Like, you know. So I was still like a little, you know, I was still hard headed, and I was still, um, yeah, I was still trying to like figure
Hey,
things out on my own. Mhm.
hang on. How did you, because you prayed and then miracle happened. And what did you think? You think I did it?
The reason why I know I didn't, this is why, like how they say God works in mysterious ways. I think had I like my plan was I'm gonna wean myself off. Like this time I'm serious about it. You know, wean myself off. And then when I get off of it, I'm gonna stay off of it and things like that. But I was at such a high dose, um, it was gonna take too long to wean off. Like my goal was like by my birthday, I don't want to like I don't want to be like this anymore. Like I remember the month of November, and like I'm trying to wean off. And even like if I lowered my dose by 2 milligrams, I would feel it. And then the doctor was like, you can't lower it, you know, because you could lower it every week. And I'll tell them, can you lower it 5? And they're like, take your time with it, right? And so, but I was like at such a high dose that I was just like, and I know for a fact, if I really would have weaned myself off it probably would have took like 6 more months. But I would have been able to say like, that's why, you know, but at this point I was like, yo, my birthday's coming up. And like, I don't know. I just remember having that thought, like that my mom was just like, you can really pray for a miracle. Like you don't have to. So I remember, you know, like really doing that prayer. And Joe Dispenza was someone who I really like got into, like started devouring his work. And one of the things he talked about meditation, like if you get up from your meditation, the same person that sat down and it didn't work, you know, and like really having this like, but I was like, um, that was gonna take too long for me, you know, because he's like how he restructured his bag, but it took months. I was like, I'm like, I don't have much. I got a couple of days to my birthday. Like this has to happen now. Like it has to happen now. And like I don't know how I'm gonna do it. And then I just like it just was a thought. I was like, my mom, I remember she's like, you can always go to God. Like you have God. Like why go anywhere? Like I've asked God for many other miracles that always came through, you know, like always. And so I was like, I'm going straight to God. Like, I'm not gonna meditate. I'm not gonna wait. I'm not gonna like. And I remember, like, even stubbornly, I was like, God, like, this is gonna happen. Like, you didn't make me for this. Like, I'm not getting up from this prayer, you know. And I'm sitting there, and I'm like, remember, I was crying. I was on my knees. I was like, you know, it was like just a moment of surrendering. And I was just like, you didn't make me for this. This is not who I am. This is not what you desire. Like, this is like literally the devil trying to get rid of me. Like, and I remember just having that conversation, and I was like, I promise, like, if you get me off of this, I won't ever do it again. Like, I won't. Like, I'm done, you know. But I need you. I can't do it. Like, I can't do it on my own, right? And so, like, knowing I've went back to the clinics and I've asked and I've looked on, like, I go down rabbit holes. Nowhere in the history of ever has anyone been on 20 milligrams of methadone, not took it the next day and not felt none. It just doesn't happen. It's not physically or physiologically possible. It's just not. I don't care how many doctors you ask, how many clinics you go to. And I've looked and I've gone into forums and I've asked questions, and like no one believes it, you know, like you took something, you did something. And like, so I think it happened that way so that like in the Bible, it said like God would do certain miracles to where there is no other explanation but God, right? There was another moment when I had got shot. Two people came running up with guns, right? And I'm already like healing from like shot. Like I can't close this hand, right? Because like I got shot through my hand. Like somebody, I was sitting in a car. I look last minute at the mirror. Someone like puts a gun in my head, and I like instantly in a split second, like I grab it, pull it off, and the gun discharges in my hand. As the gun discharges in my hand, like the bullet doesn't spit out, right? It's like, so the bullet didn't spit out. So when they pull it away and they try to keep finishing me off, it jams, you know? And so boom, that was already like, I can say quick instincts, right? I got some quick instinct. I was fast, you know, and the bullet jammed. It was, you know, luck and chance or whatever. I didn't die. Okay, good. Couple months later, like what, 2-3 months later, I'm like still in my neighborhood. I'm just hanging outside, and two guys run up now, and both of them got guns. I'm sitting on the stairs. When the first guy shoots, right? So I felt it, all this crushed, like all my bones crushed. They took a bone out of my head to put it in my hand to not lose my fingers, because the bones just crushed. The bullet literally crushed all the bones, the ligaments, everything. So to save this finger, they put my hip bone in here. I know what that felt like. I got shot in my foot, and like the very first guy starts shooting, I get shot in my foot. When I get up, I can't put no pressure on my foot. Like I've like, damn, my foot felt just crushed. And I fall off from the top of the stairs. I hit the ground with this hand, re-break my fingers, laid out on the floor. And I remember I called out to my friend that was there. I was like, you know, I yelled his name so he can pick me up and like pull me away. And I just see his feet run off. And I was like, God, like I was just like left there for dead. And it happened like so quick, like so quick in an instant that like I had this thought that I was just like, why did I yell out to my friend? You know, he can't save me. The other guy's like standing over me with a gun, and like, mind you, I couldn't walk. And when the other guy's standing over me, now he's like shooting directly over me. Nothing's hitting me. Either he had blanks, you know, or just for whatever reason, nothing like hit me. He's standing right over me. At the time that he's shooting, I say in my mind, it was the funniest prayer, because I said, fuck it, God. If you can get me out of here, get me out of this. And like instantly I just knew, like it was just like, get up, you know? And when I'm like, okay, so I stand up and now I'm walking off. And like normally I've been shot at like many times. And anytime I'm against, especially close range, I'm zigging and zagging, because you know it's hard to hit a moving target. But I didn't. Like this time I was just walking. I'm more looking at my foot. I'm like, I couldn't just walk on this foot. Like, what is happening, you know? And I just like walking, and now the other guy's like trying to shoot at me, and everything's just hitting the wall, but I'm not zigging or zagging, or like I felt so just covered, and so like I just walked off, right? All my friends, all the people that were in this neighborhood that like I had laid my life on the line for, I did so many things for, everyone leaves, everyone takes off, you know? I even like suspected like some of the people had something to do with it. And it was like a moment of like realization that I was like, well, why would I ever call out to anybody else? You know, like it was like I couldn't explain it. You know, there's like stories I don't even talk about, but like it was more of a knowing. You know, and it was like God was just like, why would you, like you know, since you were a kid, I'm the only one that's ever had you. You know, and like I knew it, and I walked to the hospital. When I get to the hospital, I just walk in. It was a Friday the 13th in October. And so much things was happening. Like there was people, like there was so much like things happened in the hospital that they didn't even have room for beds. They had people in the hallway. People were stabbed. People were like, there's just a lot going on that night. And I see my friend that ran and left me there, you know, and like where I grew up, you know, like if I would have just told people that he left me, like he probably wouldn't have been able to come back, right? They would have looked at him a certain kind of way. He sees me, he looks at me like he saw a ghost. He's like, he thought I was just dead. Like I walk in there, and when I see him, I told him like, I'm not even mad at you. Like you couldn't save me. Like it wasn't, You're right. Like, I was like, it was my fault for calling out to you. You're good, you know? I just walked myself straight into the hospital like that. I just throw myself on there. I'm like, doc, I need an X-ray. They're like, have you been here before? Like, who is this? I was just so calm. And so like, I was like, I need an X-ray on my foot, you know, like something like, let's speed this up, you know, call my mom, get my mom on the phone. They call my mom like comes, she's like frantic, you know, like she doesn't know, she's heard like I'm shot again. She walks into the hospital, she comes, when I look at her, like we just both like look at each other and we just like kind of laugh. Like, I don't even know why. I was just like, I'm looking at her, I'm just like smiling. She just kind of laughed. I'm like, Mom, it's good. Like, don't even worry. Like, I'm like, your God's real, you know? Like, your God is real. Like,
Wow.
and so we're waiting on the X-rays. And the X-ray come out, and the doctor's just like sitting there, like perplexed, like he's just looking at the X-ray, and he's just like trying to study it. And he's like, "It's just my foot." And I'm looking at it because I've spent so many months looking at X-rays of my hand. I'm looking at it, and I'm like, "There's nothing broken in there. Like, nothing looks like messed up." And he's looking at my foot again because there's an entry and there's an exit wound, right? And so, and he's looking at the thing, and he's like, and I told him, I was like, "It's a miracle, huh?" And he's like, "Huh?" He's like, "No, wait." And he's just like making sound like, I was like, I'm not a doctor, but nothing in there looks like broken to me or like this. I was like, I think it's a miracle, huh, doctor? And he's like, you know, like doctors don't want to necessarily believe in miracles, you know? And he's like, no, I didn't say that. I was like, well, explain it to us. Like, what do you see? He goes, the best explanation I got for you is that the bullet entered, the bullet disappeared, and then the bullet exited, because there's no ligaments torn, there's no bones broken, there's nothing. There's just an entry and exit. They wrapped it up and they sent me home. That, like, my mom went home and they just sent me home on crutches that day. They were just like, you know, let your foot heal. Like, I mean, it was hurt, it was bruised, it was like I couldn't put pressure on it. But as far as bones being broken and like needing surgery, like I did, like I thought I was like, oh, they're gonna have to put things in my hip. Like, it was like no explanation. And I remember like I couldn't put pressure on it, on my foot. It was like later when I talked to my mom about it, it's like when I almost got killed a couple months ago, it was like it was already time for me to leave that neighborhood. It was already time for me to leave like the life of just being like in the gang and being like outside, being out there. But I came right back. I wasn't even living there. I went to go do my laundry there. Right. I went to go do my laundry there, and like I didn't have to be there. You know, people were dying left and right. It was like it was already time for me to go, but just me being stubborn and, you know, always like I had no business being there, you know. And so even when I came back from the hospital, like when I'm coming back from the hospital that day, I'm in my crutches. I get to the corner, a whole nother car pulls up. They jump out with guns. I don't know if like there's like a full-fledged like war going on at this time. So like so many things are happening. They jump out with guns, and I'm just like, I'm about to like run. I can't run because like I'm on crutches, I'm on this. And I look at them and I'm just like, I literally just got shot. Like, you guys are gonna have to give me a pass. They look at each other like, what? And like he's looking and he's just like, and they just get back in the car and drive off. And I was like, yeah, I'm not coming back here no more. You know, and to this day, like this is my neighborhood. I drive by, I can walk by. We have murals. It's a beautiful like place. I grew up there. Um, Many friends out there. My nephew lives, you know, out there. So I would like go see my nephew. I'll go say to like my mom's church that's there. It's not like I'm running and hiding from my neighborhood, but I don't walk around. I don't, because like I already made that like contract with God, like don't be here, right? There's no need to really be here. So I had left that neighborhood, you know, and that's when like I got into a whole nother like level. I was no longer selling drugs out there, but I was like in these other places now, and like I did move. I didn't change my life, you know, but I stopped going there after that. But that was like a moment that I can't explain to people. It was like a miraculous moment. But that's why when you say, why did bad things happen to good people? Like, it could have been a bad thing, right? It looked like a bad thing, but really it was like a good thing, because if that didn't happen to me, I wouldn't have really left, you know? And so,
Have you heard of Dying to Be Me? Anita Mujani, I think.
no.
Let me see. Anita Mujani, yes. Dying to Be Me, or a lot of people would have. So yours sounds a little bit like kind of a near-death experience. So Anita, she had a near-death experience, and she was completely, she had cancer. She was almost died. And she even heard, and a lot of people explaining their near-death experience. She explained how she was in the air and then floating, and then she heard all the surgeon talking. And then she talked to God or someone from the other side, and then said that you're not ready, and then asked her to come back. And then she came back, and then she knew she's going to be healed. And then even though the doctors couldn't believe it, and then trying to give her all the drugs, and then she said, oh, you can put all the chemicals and all the poison in me, I will still be healed. And then the doctors couldn't explain. And there's a lot of similar kind of miracles, and I feel like yours. And the other thing I thought of was the desire, the burning desire. So it's like in Bible, it said that if you have a burning desire to know the truth or know God, and then you will be manifested. And I feel like you seriously, you had that burning desire, and it's yes or no. It's like there's no other option. You put yourself really in that no option place, then you got to answer. And then I believe you had that faith too. You're trusting God would deliver you out of where you were. So wow, that's I can't believe you just explaining so calmly. It's like for me it seriously sounds like a movie. And then you're just I don't know how you could, when you say when you in a neighborhood a lot of people die in a shooting, that was just a common thing that happening in that neighborhood?
Yeah, and honestly, like I've suffered so much over it, like, and I just thought like no amount of suffering brings anyone back. No amount of suffering like changes anything. And like I usually thought like I would feel guilty if I didn't feel bad. I mean, it's like I can't say I don't feel bad, but I don't choose to like suffer over it.
No.
Like I said, like we're about to bury like a really good friend of mine this week, and it was really unfortunate and sad because I kept trying, I kept trying, and like now, like you could look at it one way, like if people are just like, oh, he's not suffering, he's not, he's like he's in a better place and all that, but I was just like still like it's kind of upset, because I'm just like he could have been in a better place now, he didn't need to like die to stop suffering, but before a couple years ago, I would can't do nothing. I can't get on this podcast right now. I gotta lay in bed for a couple of weeks. I gotta just suffer this and like so. I don't know how to explain it. It's not like I can't like it's not like I'm cold to it. Like I still feel, I do have those things. I have dreams about them. I haven't like been sleeping too well, but I've done the other thing. Like I've done the whole just like and all that. And like it just it didn't serve me that well. But yeah, it did become like really common, especially like back then it was more so like murders. There was a lot of murders happening. A lot, like probably like I tried to count them, and it was like over 50 people that I know for sure that were just like murdered. Others life in prison, like not coming home. And but now, like recently, it's been more suicides, drug overdoses, just bad like habits like diabetes and cancer, and like it's been more like preventable deaths. It's been more like that's been the more I don't want to call one more unfortunate than the other, but it's just like so preventable, just like decisions. And when I remember when I did the trainings, and even like when I did the trainings, I was looking at the pictures today. I just posted them, and I sent them to my friend. He's like, "Dude, you look so happy there. Like you don't even like I can't recognize you." Because I really did have a transformation over there. I did like really like I've been like getting into a lot of like identity work, right? Like, and I'm realizing how that's like probably the biggest shift like anyone could ever make, right? It's an identity shift. And how a lot of people are not letting certain things go because they identify so much with that part of themselves that for them to let that go is like it's scarier than actually being in what they're in, right? Because like how I said, better the devil than the one you don't. And like, but I can't just explain that to someone because it just took so many years to actually And I mean, even with like church, I'm like, what is the difference that makes when somebody in church like has instant, I've seen some instant changes in the church. I've seen real life miracles in church, like growing up. It's not like miracles are also not a thing that surprised me. Like I told you, we have food just get dropped off to us. Like everyone, oh yeah, someone just knocked. Like, no one just knocks on someone. And even if they did, even if somebody did knock, someone did see my mom struggling with this kid and they wanted, with these kids and wanted to go leave food. Like at the time when we're just down to our last egg, like that's bigger than me getting sober, than me, like anything. Like that wasn't like my mom trusted. She knew for sure. And it was a test, and like they say, like all these struggles come before you get tested. Like at that time, my mom is like really getting close with God. And that's how I see it, because she could have easily gone and like stole some food, and it would have been justifiable. Like she has to feed her kids. She don't have the money. She wasn't gonna go sell her body, but I mean she could have did that. There's a million things she could have did, but she sat, she trusted in the Bible, she trusted in God. We could have seen that like her getting robbed was a bad thing. I was so angry about that. Like when I seen that kid like rob her, and like even later on when she would say that story, I was really angry about it. But now I understand the story. It was like a moment where she had to trust God. It was a moment that to this day she's touched so many people with that testimony, and it just really solidified her conviction that God was real, because she she had to like really believe. And like that was just one. I've seen people get up from wheelchairs and start walking because they believed it. And me being like knowing about the mind, like the Power of Subconscious Mind by Joseph Murphy, like there's some like really like interesting stories in there, like how people like if you have a strong enough belief, like the mind is very powerful. So I've even tried to go down that route. I'm like, oh, God really doesn't exist. It's just the mind is so powerful that people don't understand the works that they do, with their mind. But there's just things that is bigger than the mind, that now I can see, that have nothing to do with the mind saving you. But I do still believe how powerful the mind is. And I really do still think that people don't understand it. One thing I loved about Joe Dispenza was all the like spontaneous remissions and how he got into that work. And it was exactly how you said, is people who on their deathbed, they get a certain amount of time to live. And the one thing he saw common about all of them is that they had to release this old identity that they held around, all this anger towards certain people, all this pain to certain people. They had to trust in something outside of themselves, right? They had to fully surrender and let go. And like there's like all these things that happen, because there's plenty of people that probably prayed and trust and they're like, I'm going to be healed, and it didn't happen. But there could have been, in my mind, just thinking about it, like there could have been a part of them that really didn't fully believe.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
so yeah,
Yeah.
and so yeah, so it's like, I don't know, just I guess just trying to make sense of certain things. But when I see what people are going through, I see what I've been through, is these like identities, like people hold on to this like identity so much and they won't let it go. And like and they, I've seen people just losing their lives with that. So it's like now I'm trying to, like if I talk to people, I'm like really trying to give them this idea, like you have to put, or even how we were talking about when we first started talking about, people say my car and my house and my this. People are, because since they don't know who they are, they put their identity, they put their self-worth on something outside of them. But the problem with that is like if you put it in something that could be taken away, like who are you when it gets taken away? Right. And so like someone's like on this job title, and then as soon as it's taken away, they fall into this crazy depression and they don't know how to recover from it. But it's because they put so much of who they are on something outside of themselves that it's like they lose themselves, not knowing you really never lost anything. And so that's what I think I've seen in church when people like say you become a born again Christian and you kind of like just die to yourself and you put on this like identity of Christ. I like that about the Bible, regardless of how it is. I like that they're telling you like, like how God sees you, it's like pure love, pure like these values that it's innate in all of us. And like when you put your identity in Christ and your identity in that, like crazy change happens, like crazy change, right? Because you're just like all these other things that really were never you, but the only reason you would think that's you is because you don't know who you are, especially in like the Western world, or at least like from what I see, it's like people make so much money telling you who you are, right? And so status and buy our products and buy, as long as you know who you are, like you're gonna buy this cream and you're gonna buy this car and you're gonna buy this purse and you're gonna, like, you know, this just, let's keep telling them that they're not worthy and that they have no sense of self. And so people with no father and no anything, they're like seeing these groups of people who also have no father. They just look like they have it together. They're gonna latch on to this group to find somewhere where they belong, right? And it just really boils down to like, you don't know who you are, you know? And so I had that experience when I went to the training. I was like so happy. I was finally out of my environment. Like I'd already been sober. I already had done these trainings. I already had like read all the books and actually applied the stuff. So I was already like a different person. But when I went to these trainings and then I saw how people were living, like I was just like, people were like running online businesses, doing something positive, making crazy amount of money, living the lifestyle I've always wanted to live. I'm like, this whole time, you mean I could have just like, you know, like I could have been doing something else. And like, I was just so excited about that. And like, also these mindset shit of being able to have these crazy like experiences, but I never shared my story. I was just trying to like hide behind, like, I'm trying to be one of them. And so it was like a really high. And when I gave up everything for that, I didn't have like, I've never had a bank account and credit, like to this day, like I don't have credit cards, I don't have, it was just saving money, all the money I had, and I fully invested in this dream I had, you know, of like being able to do that. My idea was I'm gonna learn these things, I'm gonna come back and save everybody, you know, like I'm gonna have the tools to really go into these neighborhoods, I'm gonna get them all out, you know? And so when I did that, I came back and like I lost everything. I lost the place I had, so I was like back homeless again, right? I was like, I went to go stay with mom, sleep on her floor. The car that I even had, like I had to give that, like I gave up everything just so I can go follow this. When I came back and like try to share with everybody, um, no one wanted to listen. You know, like nobody. It was just like I'm like, you could just do this, and there's this whole other life, and you don't understand. And like, and it was more like survivor's guilt, you know, because I'm just like, I was able to get out, and more people were just looking at me like, oh, so you think you got it all figured out, and like, and so I'm talking to people from the trainer, like, do you got your clients yet? Do you have your like, are you running your training yet? And like, I know you should be making crazy amount of money doing this, and like you shouldn't be struggling, but I'm just like, um, I'm losing people to suicides right now that I just been talking to all week, and like it didn't work. Like none of this stuff works, you know? And it was a really, well, again, like now maybe it's me. Maybe for everyone else, they're having all these crazy experiences, but like it's not working for me, and no one's listening to me. And now, like my little peer group that I did have some kind of like, it's like I started having to shrink myself to just kind of fit back in. But it's like I couldn't fit in with them anymore because I wasn't them. And it's like I couldn't fully embrace this one because I wasn't them, and I wasn't like owning who I was or anything. So I felt lost. And I really wanted to commit suicide. I was just like, I just had this super high thing. No one here is listening to me. And like, I didn't tell nobody. Like, this is like one of the first time I'm sharing this. Like, I just want to commit suicide. I really was really close to doing it. And the only reason I don't is because my mom. Like, that's the only thing that like I latch on to. That's just like, she can't have gone through everything, you know? And I'm just gonna have to be deprived. But I wasn't gonna do drugs. I knew that. So I was like worse now. Like at least before I could at least go do drugs, at least I could go be. I was like, I can't do that because I've already decided, but I can't fully embrace this thing, and then now I don't know who I am. And so that was like really tough for me. But it wasn't until like years later. Now when I look back at it, like you know, I couldn't talk to people about it because you're an NLP trainer. You have it all. Like you got to use these tools and like figure it out. And it just felt more like crap, you know? And I'm just like, and I just like gave up, you know? And then now I just took a job at a warehouse, you know, just to like fit in. I wouldn't tell people, oh, I'm a coach, I'm a trainer, because I couldn't step into the identity. And so I would rather tell people I'm a warehouse worker, you know, like I still had to eat. I wanted to do things right. I wasn't going to go sell drugs. I wasn't going to go do drugs, you know? So now I'm like, at this just super mindless, low level job, you know, and that was crushing me even more. And like, and because I had this like thought that I was gonna move to Vegas. I was gonna start my whole life out there, but like I invested more money to get the last training, you know. Like I was probably way in over my head as far as like, but I wanted to like keep learning and keep it going. But it worked out perfectly. Like, because when I came back, um my mom had got sick. We're like hanging out. I'm at the house with her, and like out of nowhere, my mom's like feeling kind of bad, and I'm laying down on the floor, and I'm just like figuring, because you know they live in a studio apartment, but very small. Like we never had a house or anything. They sleep in the same bed, you know. But they opened up a little corner on the floor. I'm sitting there, and I'm just like with all my manuals, and I'm trying to like thinking what I'm gonna do, and I don't know what's going on. And then all of a sudden, like I'm laying down, and I just hear my sister get up. She's like banging on the door. And she's like calling out to my mom, and mom's not opening. And she's like, boom, she like bust through the door. And my mom is like naked, stuck in between the bathtub and the bathroom, just laid out on the floor, blue, like just like damn near like dying, you know. And she's so strong, like so like I've never experienced like her in that kind of like situation. And we don't know what's happening, so we call the ambulance. The ambulance come, they take her, we go to the hospital. She can't even like, you know, she's like not, I don't know what's going on, right? So this is just even like way too much for me to handle. And so we get to the hospital, and like they're not telling her like what's wrong, you know, and everyone's freaking out. Like my sister is very like strong character, and she's like, what's going on? And my brother's like more freaking out, you know. And I'm really the one that like always freaks out on top of everyone, but I have all these like new, like I came back from these training, and like I was able like to remain calm, and I'm like understanding, like I'm like this is not really gonna work, you know. But I'm inside, I'm like I don't know what to do, but I'm trying to just remain calm. They give her fentanyl, and they just like send her home, you know. And like I'm like, you know, I know these drugs. I'm like, this is like, why are they giving her fentanyl, you know? And like why, like how much pain is she in that they're like literally giving her the strongest drug they can give her and just send her home. And they send her home, and same thing happens again the next day. She like has an episode, she almost passes out, whatever. We go to another hospital. Ended up her gallbladder was like having to be removed. It got inflamed, and it was about to burst. And if it would have burst because it was infected, like she would have died. Like they sent her home with like this thing that was like so close to just killing her. They have to get it removed at this hospital. And like, so even if I would have gone and I would have moved to Vegas and did what I thought I was gonna do, like I would have had to have come back, you know? I didn't know like I had to be there. And now like my mom's always she's always been the one that's like, you know, she's always been pushing me. She's always been like super strong. She's just like, you know, the weakest that she's ever been. And I can see like she's giving up. Like I can see it in her, you know, my mom's like 70, you know, so she's already thinking that, you know, she's very, you know, strong for her age, and you wouldn't tell. But I've never seen my mom like that. But I did learn one thing. I was like, I know the power of the mind. I know the power of suggestion. I know that like you can literally kill yourself. Like literally, if you just think like it's over. So while everyone's like, you know, loving on her, and like I was like, that's not gonna help her, you know. So as like hard as it was for me, like I didn't allow her to like I changed her language anytime. Like you're not talking like that. You're not doing this. We're not, you know. And like in the back of my mind, like I wanted to, like I didn't know what's going on, but I was like, no, you know, like I know, like, you know. And people thought like my brother was like, you're being a little too um like he just, I was like, no, like stop feeling sorry for her, you know. And like, and she was like, I would just hear her all night like I never heard her like talk like that or make those noises or whatever. And she would like sit on the bed, and I would grab the mirror. I put the mirror in front of her, and she's like, oh, I'm down. I was like speak life into you and say how you're healthy and like keep telling yourself this. And I was using the Bible with her, like I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. I can do this. And I was like Literally, and it was every day, every day, every day. Anytime I heard her, I'm like, we're not gonna talk like that. We're not gonna think like that. We're gonna switch everything. Like you're seeing yourself healthy. You're walking around the house. You're doing mission trips. You're doing this. You're like every day, like no matter what, every day, every day, every day. To like, and it took like some weeks. I remember I was like laying on the floor one day, and like she started like, she's singing and stuff, and I was like, because she always sings, and I'm just like, oh my God, like she's like finally back, and and like I didn't want to say nothing, but I'm just like watching, and I can just see her, and she's like, she's back, and so, and I honestly believe like if it wasn't for everything that I invested for her, like I would have been different. And I really do believe like the whole situation would have been like different, and it was just worth everything that how it played out. We don't know these things until like we look back, but even that, so, but yeah, so like fully like trying to just like embrace everything and like really allowing myself to just let go of this like identity, even though how scary it was. And even thinking like comparing myself like, oh, I have to like take on this other identity I was like, no, I'm actually just me. Like I'm me and I'm different. Like I am a different person. Like I really do. Like I know for a fact I'm a different person. I'm not the same person, but I'm still me. Like all my experiences are still unique to me. And I don't need to like hide behind these things that I did or like whatever happened. Like, like that's just who I am. And like, and I've changed, completely different, but I'm not like, like me coming and open like my story, like was like the final like, okay, I'm just gonna like show the world like who I am, and that has gotten more than like trying to be who I'm not,
Exactly.
Yeah.
Have you noticed when you let go and then were you explaining about what you did for your mom? And then remember you said before, like you were selling drugs and you tried to provide for her because your mom and your daughter were your wife. And then she didn't accept what you wanted to give her. And now by letting go, you were staying to serve her. You saved her basically. So you did exactly what you wanted to do all your life. And now you did it. Did you realize that? And while you were saying that, and then I thought, wow, you just did it. And then by letting go, not holding on to the identity. By the way, what was the identity event or seminar or course that you did?
Oh no, it was so like I went and I learned hypnosis, I learned timeline therapy, I learned like coaching, and I took a neuro-linguistic programming. So I got certified as a practitioner, then as a master practitioner, then as a trainer, and then I took like this other one. It was like a quantum master coach, but it had a bit of that. And then I went to like some marketing seminars as far as like Offer Mine with Russell Brunson and like Myron Golden and like just exposing myself to all these different like new worlds, But it wasn't an identity course. It's just like as I'm getting into change work and as I'm seeing like, working with people or during 2020 when I came back from the training, when this is all happening with my mom, I was like sleeping on the floor. So I go hang out with like some old friends or whatever. And I'm like in this environment where everyone's kind of, still doing the same thing. And I'm noticing this kid. I'm like, this is like, I can notice like this isn't his environment. And when I would talk to everybody, nobody would listen. But he's the only one that would listen. And I could see it in his face. Like certain things I would tell, he would just look at me like, and he would tell his friends, like, are you guys not hearing what he's saying? And he like had anxiety, like really bad. And I was like, I can get rid of that right now, if you want, and he's like, no, you can't, and I like gave him a little like, do this. And he's like, it's gone. And he's like, how did you do that? And I was like, it's just, that's how the mind works. Like this is once you understand how it works, how you're doing it yourself. And I was like, anxiety is something that you do. It's not something you have, and if you know how to do it, you can undo it. And so, and that was just like one thing. And then like I started like noticing things, and I'm like, dude, like this isn't you, like you have a real like you have a gift, you have a problem. The fact that you even listen, like, read this book or listen to this. And he started, and like he went on to like leave that life behind, went and started a business with his dad. Like he had these opportunities that he wasn't seeing because he didn't want the identity of being his dad. He had this thing about like, I noticed that with people with boys and their dad, and like, it's just something I noticed because like all my friends have dads, like the only one that didn't have a dad. But I do notice like there's always this thing where they want their dad to respect them or they get hard. But his dad, you know, he had opportunity. And I was just like, you can do this, do this. And like he just started doing it. And like his whole life changed. He went on to like beautiful place, his own business, and like really just like his life changed, you know. So he's like one of my biggest, like he just tells everybody, you don't understand, this guy changed my life, you know. But to me, that was the reason I did it, you know. It was like, I guess kind of like saving, you know, myself in a way from like going, you know. So that was enough joy in and of it for me, you know. And so he plays video games with this guy. So he reached out. Someone was going through some challenge and like, he doesn't know the guy. I don't know the guy. He just like, yo, can I give this guy your number? I'm like, yeah, please. So he gives me his number and like, I have it and I don't call him. Then that day I posted my story and then like, I'm sitting the next day at my mom because I go spend a lot of time with my mom. Like now it's like, you know, if I wake up, I just go hang out with her and like, we just have the most like beautiful, like unbelievable days, you know, like it's just unbelievable. Like we're just like, you know, best friends and we're just sitting there. So I go see her and like she sends me to go to the store to like buy some meat. And when I'm going, I'm just like thinking about this kid, like, let me call him, right? Because I know people tell people things about me, but he has to get a chance to experience. All I wanted to do was just introduce him to me. And he's like, when I call him, he's like, I'm like, I can hear it in his voice. I'm like, what's going on? He's like, hello, hello, who's this? And I'm like, it's Chris. A friend told me about you, you know, and he's like, yeah. And I was like, what's going on? And he's like, uh, and he's like, I was like, you can tell me, you know, like what's going on? He's like, I'm like having a breakdown right now, you know, and I'm really feeling suicidal right now. And I don't know if like I'm not gonna do it. And I was like, perfect. This is great, you know? And he's like, what? And I was like, well, I wanted to introduce you. I wanted to give you a chance to know me, but let's get to it. Like, I was like, that's good, you know? And he's like, well, what do you mean? I'm like, because I called, like, you know? Like, I only want to talk to people if they're having a breakdown. Like, I don't want to hear no wins. Like, I celebrate your wins, but that's okay. Like, I want to help. And he's like, tell me what's going on, you know? And he's like, well, you know, I'm having, like, I can just start hearing it. And like, I'm just like pouring into him in like very similar situations, completely different walks of life. He's actually Chinese, super successful, like really successful. And he dealt with like some childhood issues as far as like with being molested. And then another situation came up that triggered some old childhood things. Um, like he has like everything on paper looks like he has it together, which is causing him more trouble, right? Because it's just like if everything's like, why am I feeling like this, right? He has nothing outside to like latch onto. And I was like, yeah. And so he's just telling me, but I'm just like gathering information, gathering. And because I posted my story, like I had it like straight, like exactly how it was damn near written out in the post. And I was like, okay, like after I was like, can I share my story with you? You know, and he's like, yes, please. And I start just going straight into the story. But in the story, like I'm also using like things that he had told me to like link them so that he can see, like even though we have different walks of life, like the story is the same, right? And the you know what you need to do to get out of it is the same, right? And so I'm just like telling him, he's just like, what? Wow. And like everything just starts shifting and changing. And he's like, yeah. He goes, I'm getting high and I'm speeding. And he just had moved to Vegas. And I'm like, when you say like get high and speeding, like are you like doing 150 miles down the hour snorting cocaine down Las Vegas Boulevard? He's like, no. Like I was like, okay. He's like, who does that? I was like, I did at one point, you know. I was like, what do you mean? Like, be more specific. He's like, well, you know, I smoked weed the other day and like I'm going a little over the speed limit. And I'm like, I'm like, do you know how amazing it is for you to have, he's like, if I keep, because he's like, I'm getting high, if I keep down this road, I'm gonna lose everything. I was like, if I would have had that thought, you know, when I would have saved myself. So you're already ahead of the curve. The fact that you even recognize that it's a problem and that you actually like, or, you know, want to do like, yeah. And I already knew it was gonna be like that because my friend told me, I have this friend that he said he's like tried everything, but he's willing to do whatever it takes. So I'm like, I want to talk to him. Like anyone that says that, like like I can help him, you know? And so, or I mean, I can show him how he can help himself. And so, like, I'm telling him all these like things, and we're just talking and talking. My mom's calling me. She's like, "Yo, is everything okay?" Like, I'm like, "Yeah, I'm good. It's probably gonna be a while." We talked for about like 2 hours, and I was just like, gave him everything. Like, like, just everything shared. He's like, "Wow, I've talked to therapists for years. I've done like everything I can." And he goes, and no one has ever like talked to me to my situation and knew exactly what I was going through. And never could I have related to anybody. Like I've never seen the world differently, like so fast. Like he's like, I'm driving to the gym right now. I'm getting a membership. Like I'm not like I'm stopping this, I'm doing this. Like you're right. Like, you know, and it was more so the same thing I was doing. He was going through things and he was internalizing it. He's looking at it a certain way. He's not talking to anybody about it. Like he's just thinking everything should be okay, you know, and like not allowing himself to like, you know, just like feel what he needs to feel and like process what he needs to process and not having the tools on how to do so, you know. And at the end of everything, like after we talked, like I didn't tell him like you want to work with me. I said, do you have my phone number? I want you to like just utilize this and like you have full access to me. Like really, like you have like no idea. And he's like, I only had a really good talk. A week goes by and I didn't hear from him or anything. And I'm just like, I know how it is. Like you can get all this stuff, but if like left to your own devices, like you can, it's easy to fall back. But I caught him and I'm like, what? Like what's going on? And he's just like, oh, I'm sorry I haven't talked. He's like, I don't get high no more. And he goes, I'm like, I don't know. Everything changed. Ever since like everything changed. And he said the best part, he's like, I know it's gonna be highs and lows. Like I know it. Like it's not like a magic pill, because, but I know I can deal with it now. And I know that someone else has been through worse, like has gone through this. I know someone understands me. I know like how to set these boundaries that he like, you know, these little boundaries he had to set and like certain things. Like it was like he just kept telling me, and he's like, I don't know how this happened. Years of therapy, all these things, like talking to everybody. I wanted to die. Like he's like, now I just want to live. And I'm talking to my sister now. Like I've been hiding from my sister and her fiance. We're on our way to go eat right now. And I'm going to the gym and like, and like, it was just, I was like, you do know that who I'm talking to isn't the same person I called last week, right? And he's like, what? And I was like, I just want you to know that, like, this is a completely different person. I just want you to know that. Like that other person is gone. And like that person didn't know how to deal with that. But I really want you to know, like you stepped into your version 2.0. And like anything is possible from this. Everything just kind of just started falling into place. And I'm just like allowing everything to just
Beautiful,
like come
beautiful.
together. Yeah.
You know, Tony Robbins, he did exactly what you did, right? When he was trying to be an NLP master or practitioner, and then he was kicked out, remember? And then instead of just say, oh, I'll give up, and he went out and helped people. That's how he started, remember? And then that's exactly you just go out and help people, and then when you transform people's lives, and everything will just fall into the right place. The other person I thought of while you were talking your story, sharing your story, was Lisa Nicholson. So she wanted to help her neighbor, or no, the people in her neighborhood. At the time, people didn't because they were not ready. And then now, once she's developed all her, you know, all the things, resources that she's had, now she's able to help. And the same thing, I feel you would be probably doing something very similar. You're going to go reach out and help other people, help yourself. And then once you have all the things ready, not have all the things, when you are there, when you are ready, and when the people will be ready. When you are ready, the people will be ready. Yeah,
Those
so
are
it's kind
both
of
really big influences too in my life, was Lisa Nichols and especially Tony Robbins. Tony Robbins started it all for me. Like that was like, even before I got into the whole street life and everything, like I had read his book, I had went to go see him, like I broke away, like I'd be in the neighborhood and everyone's like, why are you reading the book? And you're like sitting out here, and it was yeah, Tony Robbins, all his infomercials when I cut school and I'd sit there and I hear his story, and like that's how I learned about NLP, or how I knew about anything was like through him. So when I came back to it, it was like Tony Robbins has been kind of like my idol since I was a little kid,
He's amazing. He has changed so many lives. And then he's doing amazingly well himself as well. So it basically says you can help a lot of people and be happy and also have what you want yourself as well. I want to go back because I think we talked a lot, but I want to get the bit that where you said you made a shift and you decided it's time for you to leave your neighborhood, and then you want to pretty much take on a new identity. So what happened when you had that miracle? When the miracle happened, and then you didn't have the withdrawal, all the symptoms, and you start to hear the music outside in the nature, the birds singing, and then you said, it's time for me to move out, leave this neighborhood. And what happened?
So at that point, I I had left my original neighborhood, but I wasn't like, I didn't necessarily, like I went to another neighborhood, but it wasn't like gang violence, it wasn't, but it was more like club scenes and more like a nightlife and like being around like that environment. And so I was still like latched on to like an old identity, but I was reading books. I was trying to make up for this lost time. We're going to go into a whole nother story, but I got sober. My brother was actually on drugs. And so my brother had his own experience as far as like he had got divorced. It was like a really ugly divorce. He kind of lost himself in that divorce, and he was doing drugs. And so like at one point we were both doing drugs together. But I got sober and he kept going. And so he ended up staying in the street. Like he was living underneath the bridge. He was like sleeping in a tent. It's like really bad. And so but I didn't like necessarily have the like tools. I just had this like miracle that happened. This is when I would go back down there and I'd be like all high and mighty, because it's like, you have to stop. And if I could do it, you can do it. And he was like, I wasn't meeting him where he was at. I was more so like coming from where I was from, like where I was at. And I was just expecting him to just like, instead of like coming and like loving on him and like, trying to like, it's just like, I did it. Why the hell are you still doing this? And my mom, and so my mom would go out there, being my mom, and she would bring him blankets and she'd bring him food. And I was like, Mom, you're enabling him. And, what are you doing? And this is, and like, he should know better. And she's like, don't forget, like what you were just going through. And don't forget like the time that he took you in. Cause I was like at his house, like they definitely took me in. And so, but I was more so angry, because like it's my older brother, and it's just like it's my hero and everything. So he was like, at one point he was just like completely lost. Like I remember he had this moment where he freaked out. He was dating some girl. They had a situation. He came to where I was staying at, and like he was just like freaked out. But at this point, I'm probably about, I'll say like 9 months sober at the time. And like at that point I had already like read a bunch of books, and like I had learned, some pretty like good tools as far as like how to manage myself and things like that. But I was still, I wouldn't say like fully evolved, but when he got there, like he was just like gone. Like I was talking to him and it was just like I wasn't talking to my brother anymore. I remember like not knowing if he was ever gonna like get out of this. I was like, God, did I like just lose like my brother, which was like making me more upset. And I didn't know what to do. And I remember like I called my mom, like kind of like freaking out. She's like, you gotta pray on it. You gotta pray on it. You know, like God's gonna make the change. Like my mom's faith through it all has been like unbelievable because she's felt the pain of having to see her kids do that, like fully felt it, especially knowing how much she loves us and how she is. But her faith never, like, she never, for not 1 second, ever doubted that her like prayers weren't gonna be answered. You know, she just didn't know what timing. And so she said, like, I made the prayer, like God's not, he already promised like that you guys belong to him. Like I know that this isn't where it ends, you know. And she's like, you just have to have faith. And I'm just like, I don't see it. I don't see it, you know, like I don't care what you're saying. Like, I think we lost him. Like I don't think he's ever gonna come back. He's gonna die out there. Like, and just like in a lot of doubt, you know. And so she she was like, I don't know. He had a moment where I mean I would like to like talk about because I don't know like when he finally decided, but they were trying to get him into this like program where he would basically get off the street and go to a homeless shelter. And even then, like I was like, God, like we weren't raised to like when I was homeless, like at least I was homeless, but I was, you know, I was making money. And so I would stay in like these like weekly hotels, or I would sleep on the train. Like there's this like train that passes from like 5 to 8. So I'll stay up all night. I'll go sit on the train, it'll catch back and forth, you know, I'll sleep and I'll wake up and I'm back at it. But I like couldn't see myself like actually sleeping and living on the street, you know. So I thought like that was probably the lowest you can go, you know? And I'm just like, God, I can't believe he's like out there, like, you know, and especially it was right by the park that we grew up in. It's the same neighborhood. And it's like where he played baseball. And so like when I would go out there and like sit with him and everything, like I always had those things in the back of my head. I'm like, God, like how did it all end up to this, you know? And so, and like I'm sober, but my brother is there, and like I'm talking to him, he's just like, he talks, he talks, he talks. And I'm just like, he's not there, you know, like he's not, like this isn't him. And but he finally decided to go get into a shelter, which was like even worse because like the girl that he was dating, they're like, we're gonna do it together. And like, you know how they say is you know, it's just it doesn't this is a decision you gotta do on your own, right? Because if like say your partner decides to relapse or the other person's gonna go down. Like you can't, it doesn't work. It just doesn't happen. Right. In every circle of history of ever, they said you cannot get sober as a couple. It'll never happen. And they were both pretty like far off, you know? So I was like, this is never gonna happen. And but he decides to go to the shelter. And when he goes to the shelter, one thing about my brother is that he worked. Like he actually had a job and he had a stable job for like 10 years. He worked as a in a funeral, in a crematory. He's a cremator, and so he held the job for like you know 10 years, and he like had a good. He's really good with his hands. He's really good like working, and like I knew he had like his identity was like really good when he worked. Like he had lost his job, he lost his wife, he had lost all these things, so he was just like just completely lost. He lost his kids. They were still come be with him, but it was just I didn't realize it then, you know. 'Cause I'm just like, you just gotta get over it, you know. I don't, you know, like you just gotta get over it. Well, why are you still crying about it or whatever? And then, but he had placed like all of it, like who he was in that, and so that experience like really crushed him. And so when he ended up going to the shelter, like I was always going to see him. I was always like out, and there was this a friend of mine who had got this job through a program. They were like giving jobs out if you went to the program, you know, they'd get people to work. And so like I told my brother, like if he was willing to work, you know, and I was like, if I can get him a job and if he can like get back in the groove of things, like maybe. Because he went to the shelter and he said, like, I'm gonna get sober and I'm not, yeah, like he wasn't gonna get high anymore. And I don't know how long he had been sober. It's probably like wasn't that long. It was like a week or something. And they were having these opportunities for these jobs. Like if you go with me, like I'll get a job. I never had a job, you know, like and I refused to like work for anybody. And so, but he's like, I was like, if you work, you know, like I'll go with you. And so I picked him up at the thing. We go to the program. They offer us this like job. It was like a 3-week job doing landscaping, and like he was already good with like digging holes from the cemetery, and like he knew he knew how to do that kind of work. And I was like, all right, I guess I'm gonna get a job, you know. And so, but it was more so like the whole plan was just like I had, you know, I had to like do this for him, you know. And so, but I didn't realize like how this was also working on me. But in my mind, it was like all about like just him. If I can get him sober, if I can be there for him. My mom was like, you have to be there for your brother. Like you cannot. And so I was like, all right. And so I'll go pick him up and we go get this job with the like worst boss that like ever like you could just ever work for. This we got there, it was a project. Like I didn't understand, I didn't know, but when we got there, they were already weeks behind on the project. The whole crew had quit on him. And so he's just like a tyrant when we got there. It's like we had to do like 3 weeks of back work, and like I'd never been on like a site like this, and I never told like, you know, I resented authority, and like I'm just wasn't used to like someone telling me how to do something. But it's just like if I walk off and quit, or if I acting like, you know, my whole brother's like life was on the line on this. So I had to swallow it up every day, like just getting treated like crap. And I couldn't show, you know, that, you know, I was like, but I would listen to podcasts and I would listen to books. And anytime I pick them up, I'm driving, I was like, that's how I'm gonna get them. You know, as long as he can hear this stuff on the way there and on the way back. I have my little speakers out, and and so he's listening to all these things, and like I'm just trying to reprogram his mind. I'm like, if I could just like reprogram the way he thinks, and like, I'm trying to have these conversations with him. And like he, you know, he loves music, but I was like, we're not listening to music. Like I can only have him during these times, and we're driving there and back, and I'll drop him off at the shelter, and like slowly but surely, like I can see the shift, like things are like really changing. But you know, I always like, what if he just gets high again? What if he relapse? What if he you know, that was like my biggest worry. But it's like he's getting his own paycheck now. He's like, you know, we're going to work together, and like just spending that time with him was like really like healing me, you know. But like even though in my mind it's like my brother always saved me. Like I always looked to him to like save me, protect me, take care of me. Like that was like, you know, he's like my best friend. So it's like this time I was like, oh, I gotta return the favor, you know. Like even thinking about it now, like he was really doing that for me, you know. And then even the boss, like the guy that we worked for was just he's just terrible. God, he was like worse than my teacher. He was like, he was so bad. But even then, like I look back, like that was such a test, like for myself to like practice all the things that I was like really learning. Like I had to like really reframe every way that he would act towards me. And it's like things I was learning, like I had like it's cool knowing these tools, but it's one thing like actually using them, right? So he was giving me this like opportunity to like actually practice what I was learning. And but in my mind, it's just like, you know, because there was days that my brother didn't want to go. I'd pull up there and he's like, I'm like, your whole life is on this if you go or you don't, you know? And I was like, I don't want to be here, but I'm showing up every day. Like, you're going to go, you know? And it was like really forcing him to get back. 'Cause he was just home. He was just in the street. He was just used to like, you know, so he's like coming right back to work. And so I don't know how long we were there. It probably was like, maybe even more. It was like 2 months, 3 months till we finished the project. And then I was like, all right, we have to find something else. And then there was this like tree company that was like hiring. And so like I just got on as quick as we could, right? Because I didn't want him to spend like too much of a gap by not working. And so we go get this job at a tree company. I go with him. And he actually like really enjoyed that. Like that was like really like fun work to him, you know. And it was another long drive there and back. So it's like another opportunity to just brainwash him with everything of this, all my podcasts, all my audiobook, everything. And but he kind of took more so to like the brotherhood of work. And like I didn't like I enjoyed the people there and everything, but I didn't like people were just like, I've been here 20 years, and some of those I've been here 15 years. I've been here for, and to me, I was like, you guys are all lifers to this job, and like, still like being like thinking I'm better than work, And so like, and my brother always said it like, this guy works with his mind. He doesn't work with his hands, like, but it was like super humbling for me. And like those times spent with my brother, like I couldn't, like, you can't replace that, and like just getting back to like these moments and laughing with him and like all these things. And they eventually like made me like a foreman on one of the jobs. And so like I would work with, like, we just had so much time, but like my goal was to like go get certified. Like that was like every dollar I was getting paid, I wasn't buying clothes, I was just putting all my money away. Like I didn't know where, how, when this was gonna happen, but I knew it was. And so like lunchtime, everyone was just like, come hang out. Like I wouldn't hang out with somebody. So people didn't really like me over there because they're like, why is your brother just always in his books and is always like studying and he's always like, and my brother's like, he's just, he's making up for lost time and he got other things going on. And so I was like, I'm not gonna stay here. Like that was just like, I can't be here like for 20 years, like I have other desires. But I was there with my brother. And then I remember when I finally decided, I was like, okay, I really want to go take a training. Like, I want to get certified in this. And like at that point, like the job really did the shift in me. Cause like if I didn't have that job, like I don't know if I'd probably still be, I don't think I would have been on drugs or anything, but it was just too much like free time and too much, it like kept me away from certain things. It taught me like about being responsible, about like showing up. And even the first boss was like so hard on it that when I showed up, it didn't matter where I went, I just thought that's how, like, that was my first experience working. So people were like, dude, slow, you're not on a slave ship. And I was like, I don't know how else to work, because that's my only experience that I had was like, and so so I even thank him for, treating us the way he did, because it all worked, for me. And so at one point I was like, I decided like, okay, like I'm about to go take this training, but it was going to require that I left, for like a week or like take a week or two from work. And I didn't know if like I could leave my brother, I was like kind of just playing with the idea. And my brother knew, like I was like, I think he heard me, talking on the phone. He like overheard me talking about it. And like one day he's like, I'm okay. And I'm like, what do you mean? And he's like, I'm okay. Like you can go, And he's like, you sacrificed, for me. And I just like want you to know, like, I'm okay. I want you to like to go, follow that dream of yours. And I was like thinking about it, I was like, are you sure? And he's like, yeah. I was like, okay. And so I go home that day and I just look up, NLP training. And the first one that popped up, they actually also had hypnosis. I really got into hypnosis. That was like a secret that I didn't want no one to know because like the church looked down on hypnosis. Everyone thought it was weird, but I like really know the power of hypnosis, at least for me. I did a lot of self-hypnosis tapes, self-hypnosis books, and like I just really like would like it. So I saw one that was they offered all four. I never had heard of timeline therapy, but they also offered timeline therapy. Like I don't even know what this is, And then but I picked that training. I called them, like I booked it. I got the time off work, and I go out there and like I'm gonna go, And so when I get out there, like timeline therapy was like, I don't know if you're familiar with timeline therapy, but it's just a way to like really like deal with like traumatic events, like real traumatic events. It's like it's a form of hypnotherapy and hypnosis, but it's like its own thing, right? And so that was like super powerful because it like took me back to all these experiences that I was having, and like I really, it's like you're releasing like these, it's like releasing these negative emotions, fear, hurt, guilt, shame. Um, and it's like done in a matter of minutes, right? And like the claim is that we can get rid of it, like for good, like things that you've been suffering for so long. It's like the claims are crazy. And I was just like, wow, this is like, this is too good to be true. And it was just like really like working with people. Like people were doing it and like they were just like that. But for me, one, I was like kind of too scared to go into those experiences. And two, like I also thought like, well, my experiences are different, you know, and like people haven't experienced things that I experienced, and so I was a little hesitant for it, you know, but later on, like I realized like how powerful it was. And I realized that it doesn't just completely work with just like, you know, maybe it does, but just for in my personal experience, like it doesn't just like completely get rid of it, especially if there's like like extreme, you know, versions of it, but it is super powerful, like beyond powerful. And it did like alleviate a lot of it for me, even after all the work I did. Like I was going back and I was just like releasing things. And so like I came back like a different person, you know, and like I had these certificates and you know, but there was a couple months till the next training. So I'm like back at work and I'm saving money for it. Like I had this whole new experience. I met all these like new people and like everything was like it was just like really, really, really cool. There's like a funny story about this. So I go back to the next training. This one was 16 days and like they didn't want to give me the time off, you know, to like go. And so but my mind was made up and like I already knew I was gonna like do it. So I booked the date and everything, and like I go get certified. This is in 2019. Through all my notebooks, 'cause I have notebooks like just laying around, from, like even all those days when I was in my brother's garage, and like I just got notes everywhere, and I was like organizing all my notes. I found a piece of paper that said, "I am a NLP practitioner trained by Tad James, 2019," and I had wrote this in like 2015. Didn't even know. I don't even remember writing it. And I'm a master practitioner, also trained by Tad James in 2019. Just put it away. Don't know how, don't know where. And it just like happened, you know? And so that was like always like really interesting to me. And then so when I stayed out there, my goal was to finish master prac, get this other money that I had saved, and just stay out there. I was just gonna stay in Vegas. I was just gonna like figure out a practice over there and like kind of just fully leave everything out here. And but it's like I did so good and I had like studied so much and like I over prepared. Like I already was like I was just doing so good and everything. And someone that came up to me and they're like, why don't you become a trainer in this? Like you really like we, you know? And I was like, started playing with the idea. Like they planted that and I was like, what? Me? Like train? Like I didn't even finish school, you know? Like you know, I still had this belief, like I'm dumb and I don't even, you know, like why would anybody? But I was like, why am I doing so good? You know, and like and I didn't want to finish the experience, but for that, it was like gonna cause that, like I lose my place, like I give up my place because I wasn't gonna be able to pay the rent. I give up my job. My car was out there, it was gonna get towed, or it had just got towed. I was gonna have to come back to get my car. Like it was a really big, like moment and decision, you know, if I made this. And it's gonna leave me out there for 45 days, you know, it went from like a 16-day to like a 45-day thing. And so I was like, it was just really like I just let go of everything. So I just decided, I was like, you know what, I'm gonna do this. And it was like scary and it had nothing to do with like learning. This was now like training people. So we were being like judged by like, you know, like the it wasn't like tests or like working with, it was like really like how to present, stand in front of people, like things that I didn't like was really more terrifying than the neighborhoods I've been in. I was like, dude, you get shot at and you don't even get nervous. Why are you nervous standing in front of people? Right? I didn't get it. And I was just like, oh, that's that little boy inside of me that doesn't want to be seen, that's been trying to be safe, that's been trying to like, you know, hide out this whole time. And I almost gave, like I paid for it and everything. And the first day was just, it was too much. And I was like, I'm not gonna do it. And I called my brother. Michael, I can't do this. I'm coming back home. He's like, didn't you pay? I was like, yeah, but you don't understand. It's like, it's just too, it's too much. Like I'm way too, like, he's like, dude, you're not gonna die. I was like, but it feels like I am. And I don't know. He's like, and then he told me, he goes, if you run away now, you're gonna run away for the rest of your life. And he's like, you either face it, you know, or you come home, your choice. I was like, damn, you really had to lay it on me, huh? So I was like, all right, I'm gonna stay. And like that was like a crazy experience. But yeah, that's when I came back, really high, super low. But I came back, my mom happened, and so like all that. But ever since that, I just kind of just like, more so at my own pace, but I've just been like assisting at certain trainings and like, you know, I even had a moment where I like put it away for like, I was like, this don't work, you know, because like nothing's really changing for me, and not seeing like everything that, you know, not seeing what happened with my mom, not seeing what's happened with my brother, not seeing what happened. Like, I'm just like, I was comparing to like, oh, because, oh, at that training, it was like, all these people I used to watch on YouTube, all to like these people I was like fans of. And I'm like, whoa, they're all here. And now they're like, you know, they're my peers. Like, what's going on? Like, why am I here? Like, do they not know where I was just like sleeping on a train. And now I'm like here with these people. Like, what's going on? And and yeah, but I don't know, just like looking back at everything, like it's really just been going at the pace that it has to go to. And also a lot of these people are doing things 15 years, you know. So these guys was like, you know, they were just getting this to like add to like businesses that were already running for 15 years. And like
Yeah.
now I'm like trying to learn this whole thing. So the whole comparing thing is just like a waste of time. And
You're
yeah.
out there, you're out here now. How, because you said it, you spend time with your brother and you spend time with your mom. That's relationship has always been what you wanted. So you really are doing all these things, and then you changed your brother's life and you change your own life. And then like what you said, the boss, the worst boss, that's your test ground, that's your practice ground. And you basically use that to practice your skills that you've learned. Because what we learn, it's one thing, and the theory is one thing when we go out. And that's why I guess my test ground is my home. My kids are my teachers. Because not a lot of people can trigger me, but my kids can, but actually not so much anymore. And
How many kids do you have?
Only two. They're very young. So young kids, and especially my son, he's 4, he's turning 5. He's like a magnet to me, like my shadow everywhere. Mom. So he is like, and then that's how I've been working on myself. And why, or what he says or what he did would trigger me. Now it rarely triggers me. It's still sometimes, and I would go, and then I would go a journal. And why does this happen? And then I would go back and sometimes I still can't figure it out why. And sometimes I don't ask why. Sometimes I pray, and what can I learn from it? And then I have found out I have developed so much, even just in the past few months. And then also I've been talking with friends, people like yourself. So I have a master heart versus a mastermind. You know, you go there and you meet with people. And so these people are just, so only three of us. It just,
I've never heard that phrase. And that's amazing. Master heart.
Yeah. So we don't go, we still, you know, sometimes we still go, you know, thinking this is how I think, but most of the time we meditate and we share, and then we really connect heart to heart. And whatever you share, and sometimes we don't even give you advice. Well, we don't give each other advice. We share, this is, I reflect back to you. And this is what you just shared, and this is how I felt. And then I'm reflecting back to you. Perhaps it's something for me. Actually, one of the ladies, she's always saying, this is how I felt. And then I'm going to share this. Perhaps it might serve you, but I think it's more for me. So now I use very similar language. Every time when I give someone else's advice, I say, maybe you need to have a rest. Maybe you need to take a break, calm down, let go. And then I think, okay, that's for me. It is really, when we serve others, it always comes back to us. But yeah, you've been practicing. So what are you doing now? Is that you coming out to share your stories, and then you wanted to help people?
I've been making this like the tough decision of just like cutting certain ties, cutting certain like things out of my life. And it was like someone was telling me the other day, like, how are you? And I was like, how's everything going? I was like, everything's falling apart and just coming together at the same time, you know, and beautiful. And I'm like overwhelmed, you know, and I'm excited. And I'm just like super sad of letting things go. And I'm just super happy of embracing new things. You know, it's just been like, it's like a paradox right now, but like peace, like at peace, and like fully like trusting, like I know everything is like working itself out exactly how it was. I have my little office here, and like I'm glad that we've been able like to have this conversation like here, but I've been having like my calls like outside, like I'm outside, and it, like when I saw you like outside, I was like, that's how I want to do it, you know? Like I just love being outside. I have been doing like all this work, and like it led me to like this point now where it's just been like fully embraced, and I'm just like opening to just having conversations. Like I know everything's just coming up now. I'm having like, I have like, I don't know, probably like 30, 40 calls that are just lined up right now. Every single person I send a personalized message to. And like it just opened all these doors. And I was like, I've been invited like on podcasts. They're like, why don't you come teach about NLP? Why don't you come teach about this thing? And like, and the thought was like, you know, you're an expert in this area. This is my brand actually, Endless Possibilities. Mindset is like the name that I took on like after it happened, you know, after the whole miracle. It was like really that's just like the word that came to me. It was just like endless possibilities. Everyone just calls me that. They're like, hey, there goes endless possibilities. And so
Beautiful.
like I have the LLC, I have it like all set up, you know, I have all these like certifications, I have all these like, you know, skills and tools under my belt. And so it's just really just the mission is to just like serve, um, you know, build this business, you know, teaching, training, coaching, and then putting a lot of that back into the nonprofit so that I can go do these like missions with my mom that she wants to do. Like as of right now, I'll be going, you know, to my mom's maybe for like a month. I definitely want to do like some traveling. Um, Me and my mom been like so my mom has a nonprofit that she hasn't like really she never like received money or did anything with, like it's all been just like us. So it's just like going to feed the homeless, you know, just like sporadic. We're just gonna cook a bunch of food, you know, and then we're just gonna go out because she loves to preach. She loves to preach. She loves to tell people about God, but she's not. She's like she's the one that taught me about that too. That she doesn't go to people and just like you need God, you know, or you like she's not. She doesn't do that anymore. She like shows up and she shows them, you know, what like God's love is. And by showing that, then she like talks, and they most of the time they're asking her like, how do you have this joy? And, oh, I didn't even tell you how I even got into church, but it was for my brother. When my brother finally did decide that he was gonna like get sober, they invited him to this church that was down the street from his from where he was camping out at. And my mom's like, you have to come. My brother and this girl decided they're going. I was like, Mom, I'm not going to church. She's like, this is your brother. He's always been there for you. And I was like, fine, right? And I'll go. And so I was like, but I'm telling you, I don't want to be there though. And then I'm like, I go and I sit down and like I'm there with my brother, and I'm like, well, this church is really different, like from what I've experienced. Like it was the first time like I've been to a church that I just felt no judgment. Like it really felt like a home. And you know, and so there's this once you become a member, there's a little door called Next Steps. My brother used to actually play drums in the church. He was very like involved in the church. And so, and he's like has a passion for music. And so my mom really wanted him to like, you know, go back. And so we go to the next step. And I remember sitting in the room and they're talking and like he's like, yeah, I'm sober and he wanted to be a member. And they're just I'm like sitting there so quiet, you know. And mind you, I already like had did some trainings there. So when I came back, I'm looking more at the church as like business wise, you know, and I'm very just like looking around and I'm seeing like, are these people really about the people? Is this more so about like marketing strategies? Like what's like going on here, you know? But and it's really like they really serve people. It's like very like interesting because I've tried to, you know, for a long time trying to like, find something, but no. But yeah, he went instantly became a member, things like that. But I didn't become a member, and I haven't like gotten baptized. But it's like anytime they go serve for the homeless things, I'm there. If it's for the school things, I'm there. And then I also show up. Like I do a lot of like if there's any like community work, any like rallies for like stopping the violence or for things like that, like I'm showing up, you know, and I'm there by myself, and I'm talking to people. Like I go, like even right now, like this is just things like I don't even really talk about, but I go to the street and I see someone addicted to drugs. If I see him sitting on the corner, like I just had a talk with a young kid, like had him go back home. He was out here. I'm like, what are you doing? Like talk to him. He said he had a mom. Like that's all he had. Tell him about my story, about my mom. And like he just got up and he's like, I'm going on a train, and there's like a 4-hour train back home. And I was just like, you know, like, so I do those things. Just that's just like normal, you know. And so um, but yeah, I was going to the church over and over, and then slowly like my brother got the job and like everything was cool, but then he just like stopped going. And then like I just kept going, and my mom went, and like everyone left, and I'm like the only one here. Like they tricked me into coming to church, and for whatever reason, I kept showing up. And I didn't know why, you know, but I just kept showing up every week. And so, yeah, like I served there, you know, and like whatever I can do, you know, like so I had this friend that I was like in the street with, and we grew up in the church like a long time ago. You know, some people were passing away, and I was assisting at a training right here, and because it's all online, and I'm sitting there, and then I just had a thought of his name, like it just popped up, because someone had just died from like suicide, maybe like a week before something, and it popped up in my head. I was like, he's the next one, you know, and I hadn't talked to him or anything. So I go on Facebook and I find him and I call him. I'm like, yo, what's going on? Like, how you doing? He's like, yo, I've been off drugs for 1 week, and but I'm going crazy. I'm hearing thoughts, I'm hearing this, and then I'm talking to him. I'm like, you know, you could do this and you could reframe this, and I'm giving him like all these things, and it worked, but he was still like struggling. I was like, you have to come to church, you know, like meet me at church, you know, the next week, and I'll meet you there. It's the one time that ever they had two services. Like, so church is at 10. I said, meet me at 10. That day was at 9:30 and an 11:31. He shows up with a Bible against like all odds. Like everything was like falling apart that day. He like showed up, but he was late. He's like, I'm sorry, I'm late. And I was just like, well, actually, you're on time. Like I was like, because there's a second one. We're gonna stay, you know. So we stay, and I can see him, like I'm eating with him. He's like struggling. Like we slept in a van together, like right down the street from the church. You know, we were both addicted. He went to prison, and he went and did like, you know, 4 years in prison. And like such a good, like I mean, such a good guy, like such a good guy. But he was born to his crack addicted mother. She left him at the hospital. Some other lady took him in, and that lady happened to go to the church that my mom went to. So we had the opportunity to like play together in church as kids, right? And then we go our separate ways. I find him in the street. I see him, you know, we like kind of connect. And so we're just both, you know, in the mess. And like, and then, you know, I go on and change it. And then boom, he comes to my mind. And so like I reach out to him. He's like, it's only been a week. And so he comes to church, and I'm like, you know, I'm like praying with him and everything. He's just like full-fledged crying, and like he gives his life back to God. And like the next week he becomes a member. He gets himself a Bible. He loses his house. He gets kicked out. He's sleeping in his car. I'm like, he had two dogs. So it's like I couldn't bring him here, you know. And I was like, I wish I can give you a place, but he didn't want to let go of the dog. I can't tell someone like let go of your dogs, you know, like, and he's like he's a dog whisperer. Like he loves dogs. And so, but I can tell, I'm like, this is going to be, he's making it more complicated than he has to, you know. He even called me one day, like, you know, he didn't eat, and that's when he got kicked out. Like I went and got him some food, and when I give it to him, he like gives it to the dogs first, you know. And I was like, I would have brought him dog food, you know, but he's selfless. And so, but being tested though, like, and passing every test. And so he's doing all these things, and like I can still hear in this conversation, he's like seeing things and hearing voices, but he's like really like sticking to like not going back to where he started from. He's going to church. And then at one point he got baptized. And he did this all really quick, right? And he loses his house. So he's sleeping in his car. They break into his car, take his car battery. Like he has to give up his dogs, and he's like parks the car by the church. And so during church day, he just gets up, he goes, you know, to the store across the street, brushes or whatever, and he goes inside, like every reason to like go back, you know, but he's like still pushing forward. He signs up to get baptized, gets baptized, comes out, and like he's a different guy. Like my mom explained to me later, because I was like, Mom, what happened? Because I tried to like, I was like, the thoughts are gone. And like she explains to me from a spiritual standpoint and from like how he made a declaration, you know, to like, you know, like letting go and like coming out a new man, and how God had made a shift in him. And I was like, dude, I've been coming here for 4 years. Like he's the like security there now in the front. Everyone loves him. He didn't go this week. The whole church is like, "Oh, where's Carlos? Everyone's looking for Los." Like he's just such a and he's like, "What? People really miss me?" And I'm like, "Of course, like, you know, you're," and I've seen it just change like that. So it's like I've been doing that kind of work, you know. It's been more so like, and that's been fulfilling me more than anything. And like being on him, and like now he got, soon someone saw him coming out, like they see him like, "What are you doing? Like coming out?" He's like, "I'm sleeping in my car." They put him in a sober living house. They got him a job. He just got a promotion today. He started his new, like everything's just like changing for him. And I was like, dude, like you just make me so proud, you know, like I literally look up to you, and like I aspire to like really make the kind of commitment that you make to like, you know, like I could see. He's like, "No, but you've done all this work." I'm like, "Yeah, but you don't see the work that you're actually doing. Like you're fully like doing this, you know."
I didn't get to share at the start when you share your mom's stories. It just touched me so much. Is for me, it's I often get touched, and not so much by I don't know. I just feel like there's a gut power. It's every time when I am in tune with that power and with that I call God, is I just feel it. And I'm at church and I feel it. It's when people sharing things and I feel it. It's sometimes it has nothing to do with the content, but a lot of time it does. Your mom's story just really, I just feel like, oh, just so touched. That's what your mom did, and that's what I always my kids, my daughter, when she was like 2, 3, I can't remember, and I wanted to go and take her to places, and we can, for her to experience. There's people who don't have much, even these days, and she's always understand there's a lot of people who don't have a lot. And then I often say birthdays, it's not about just us, you know, receive presents. What about we give? And then that's one thing. I haven't actually found a place I can take both my kids to go. And then my husband's a bit concerned about the you know, the food. What's it called? You serve food. You serve food to homeless people, like what you did.
Like a soup kitchen or something?
Yeah, soup kitchen. Yeah, I have always wanted to just take the kids into experience and then give. But my daughter, and it's kind of like, it's like you've been influenced by your mom. So they've been influenced. They know they would give to whoever on the street, homeless people or people not begging, busting. And then my daughter even once, and then she gave all her pocket money to the homeless people. I said, "Oh, let's go buy something for them." And then she just emptied all her pocket money. And then other day we were like, saw someone busting. And then she said, "Can we give to him?" And I said, and Dad's only have $20 cash, and we don't have any, and we don't normally carry cash. And then said, "Can we give the $20?" And I said, "Would you?" Because she wanted to buy ice cream. I said, "Would you give to him, or would you buy ice cream?" And she gave the $20 to the man. And I was very impressed. My kids are gonna be back soon, so I better get going.
This was amazing. How long did we go for?
That's been a long time. So mine 10, so 11, 12, 1, 2, 3, 5 hours. That's been a long time, hasn't it?
Yeah.
That's amazing. You have shared a lot of your stories. Very, very powerful. I was gonna ask questions, but I just feel like you were really I just wanted to let it flow. So there's a lot of things I would ask and then share my comments, but they were just beautiful stories.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you ever wanna do another one and have all your questions, I'm open to it. I knew this was like because it really felt like 30 minutes or an hour. Like this is, you know, one of those conversations where you just leave off feeling better. So, and it just flows. So more of these.
Let your light shine. Help others find their way out of the darkness. Extraordinarily inspiring stories from ordinary people like you and I. I believe we are all extraordinary, yet we're all ordinary. Let your light shine.